has created an elite police unit known as the National Internet Intelligence Investigations Team, dedicated to monitoring anti-migrant social media posts. Leaders claim its purpose is to detect early signs of potential unrest.
Unrest like this protest and counter-protest that erupted after a 38-year-old asylum-seeking migrant was charged with sexual assault for attempting to kiss a 14-year-old girl.
Despite the surveillance, UK's Prime Minister insists he still believes in free speech.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time here, so we're very proud about that. We protect it.
Well, with us now to react is Public News founder Michael Schellenberger. Michael, it is true that the United Kingdom and the West has a fairly robust tradition, long-standing when it comes to free speech, but I'm not so sure that's true anymore. I mean, there's story after story about people being thrown behind bars in the UK, even for tweets that they have deleted, with longer prison sentences than people who've committed actual physical violent crimes.
Yeah, that's right, Guy. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible story. I mean, there's a woman that's in prison for 31 months, which is 4 months longer than a child rapist is in prison. And what all she did was have a tweet up for 4 hours that she ended up taking down. This is a sweeping crackdown on free speech in Great Britain that we have not seen anything like in maybe hundreds of years. I mean, it's really astonishing. It's happening on multiple levels. Keep in mind, they were already arresting 30 people a day for wrong speech in Britain before this. Now they have a special police task force to constantly monitor social media, including X, formerly Twitter, and they can stop content based on age verification. So they can stop content saying, oh, this is harmful to mental health. And then X recently, just a few days ago, did block content on the basis of the British order to be able to identify if people were old enough to see it. So the other thing you mentioned there was the Islamophobia. They're not going to allow people to criticize mass migration. They're going to call it Islamophobia and a hate crime and prevent it. So this is George Orwell. I mean, George Orwell perfectly predicted this in 1984 when he wrote his book in the mid-40s.
You know, Michael, I was just in Europe at a conference and talking to a number of the people there. I mean, they are married to this idea that you have to monitor the internet, that you shouldn't be able to say certain basic things, including posting memes or things that are counter to what they believe politically in terms of the political party that's in charge. It's not just the UK, it's also the EU. They have this new Digital Services Act, which is complicated trade between the United States and the European Union, and even the deal that the president just got, it's an issue that has not been satisfied according to the administration. So I don't see this going in a direction that's going to get better despite the pressure. I mean, the UK and the EU are really dedicated to this idea of putting people in prison for saying the wrong thing or thinking the wrong thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Europe's crackdown is maybe the worst in the world, but I mean, it's happening everywhere, and it's actually, unfortunately, accelerated since Trump was elected. So it's the EU, it's Britain, it's Ireland wants to read your private text messages. Canada, Brazil. The strategy here is to make it so that the social media companies will basically censor this content for everybody. So I think a lot of Americans go, I don't really care what happens in some other country, Britain or Europe. They should care because this is a strategy to basically encircle the United States and then have these social media companies pressure that they just censor this content for everybody. It's coming at a time when it's overtly political. The populist parties in Europe, just like Trump and the MAGA Republicans in the United States, are focused on mass migration. So they want to censor that content because it's been so politically powerful for these opposition leaders, including Germany, France, Romania. They're basically trying to prevent the opposition from competing at all, both through censorship and just keeping them off the ballot. I will just say one positive thing is that Trump today, yesterday he called out the Prime Minister in Britain. Today he's imposed serious tariffs on Brazil because of their censorship and because of their lawfare in preventing a presidential frontrunner, the last president, Bolsonaro, from competing in next year's elections.
Well, and also, just to add to that, I mean, Americans now have to worry about traveling to Europe and saying the wrong thing or posting the wrong thing or have posted the wrong thing many years ago. Being in these so-called Western countries, they could face arrest by the Europeans or the Canadians.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's how they want. That's how 1984 works. Is they want you to be afraid of what you're going to say. They want you to be afraid of saying something controversial and then not expressing it. That's one of the most damaging things to free speech here. America was founded on the idea we have to be free to speak our minds. Europe has taken us in an absolutely terrifying and totalitarian direction.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank God for the First Amendment here.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Schellenberger, thank you very much.
Well, you're receiving a very important warning, one I really think we should be listening to. And it's sad to see our country now with a reputation for lawlessness, you know, not carrying your phone out around in our capital city, for instance. And the UK associated with weak borders yet again. In recent days, a key example of this, not only have we got 180,000 nearly, mostly young men that the Tories and Labour have allowed into the country across from France to England on small boats, that's costing around £15 million a day in hotel costs. On top of that, we also learn that thousands and thousands of people seeking asylum in this country are using taxpayer-funded payment cards to gamble. In fact, 6,500 people having used cards in gambling settings in the last year alone, attempts being made on a weekly basis. Some are waking up as our country, our government actually smuggled in people from Afghanistan without us being told about it. You've seen the likes of Germany actually deporting people now back to Afghanistan. And when you look at this issue of illegal immigration, don't let anyone ever tell you that nothing can be done and it's all too tough and you can't stop any of this. Just look at what has gone on in America. You've just seen unlawful illegal crossings along the southern border with America reach a record low under Trump. And you can see here the contrast. During many months of Biden's tenure, Border Patrol recorded more than 6,000 apprehensions per day. And in some days, daily illegal crossings topped 10,000 per day. Under Trump, you've just seen the lowest number ever. 6,000 in a month versus what was 6,000 per day. So that is what Trump has actually delivered, whether you like it or not. That is what you call results, not giving these pathetic speeches that we saw from the Conservatives where nothing actually changes. In fact, it just gets worse. So when Trump has delivered that, I think it's worth actually listening to this guy on this warning that he has given.
There's a couple of things I could say, but on immigration, you better get your act together. Or you're not going to have Europe anymore. You got to get your act together. And we, you know, as you know, last month we had nobody entering our country. Nobody. Shut it down. And we took out a lot of bad people that got there with Biden. Biden was a total stiff. And what he allowed to happen, but you're allowing it to happen to your countries. And you got to stop this horrible invasion that's happening to Europe, many countries in Europe. Some people, some leaders have not let it happen. And they're not getting the proper credit they should. I could name them to you right now, but I'm not going to embarrass the other ones. But stop. This immigration is killing Europe. And the other thing, stop the windmills, killing the beauty of your countries. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay. You see her, right? Man alive. What does the text say? If that was unclear, I'm going to read it to you. How long until the man helps me with my suitcase in Paris? So she set up the camera. What an actress, really. She set up the camera. This is like the gym girls, right? She set up the camera. She gets her suitcase. She's like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to showcase that men are bad and I don't need a man. Okay, great. Let me set up a camera. She saw the stairs and she's like, okay, I'm going to do a video. Imagine, honey, how much time you got on your hands that you sat? Just go up the stairs and go. You got somewhere to be? Oof. So what I love about this is she thinks she's making the point that guys aren't gentlemen. Like they see her. First of all, maybe they think you're doing some weird video, honey. You got your phone set up. You're staring into the camera. Maybe they think you're doing some, everybody everywhere is so absorbed in the socials now. You go on the beach and somebody's doing, got their camera set up doing God. You're going to interrupt that? A guy's going to walk over. Oh, excuse me. Do you need me to get your suitcase up the stairs? When you look like you're taking some type of video they're not going to come over to you. What a dummy. You see people at the gym. I don't go to the gym anymore. I do my workouts outdoors. It's been wonderful, actually. But you see people at the gym, they've got the whole thing set up. A hungry gym girl, they'll set that camera up for 20 minutes and do one rep, right? She barely can get it in, and she gets one, and then she puts it up like, I don't need a man. I bench this. In the meantime, it's like a quarter of a minute of benching, and how many minutes to set up the camera and fix your hair, Ronnie? So the fact that no one comes up to her, duh. Man alive. But also, let me just say this. Who killed chivalry? You did. Women, you did. Men got tired of coming over and saying, hey, can I help you? I don't need your help. You think I'm small and I can't do it myself? I can carry my own suitcase. Ugh. They got tired of that. They got tired and they stopped doing the gentlemanly stuff. They don't want to be told they're harassing you by coming over and asking if you need help, right? This is another reason that guys stopped offering to pay the bill. Right? I don't need you to pay my bill. I can pay my own way. Okay, then I'm not going to. Okay, great. Then pay it yourself, honey. They got tired. You told them that you didn't like being treated like a woman. You wanted to be treated like an equal. You wanted the man to treat you like a man. So good. Pay your own bill and carry your own damn suitcase. I don't care, right? You have to take some responsibility. And by the way, ladies, if you want this to change, then start acting like a woman and start speaking out against these talking points that you swallowed like a parrot, and start saying, actually, no, you know what? We own a lot of the blame for why men aren't being gentlemen, and I'm going to stop behaving that way because I do want a gentleman, and I'm going to do my part to be a lady so I can get one. How about that? Oh, no, women do nothing wrong. I forgot. Sorry.
We already knew that the way Valve operates is completely different to the way every other gaming company operates, but we also just learned that the way Valve makes money is also completely different from the way all these other gaming companies make money. Think about it. What do all these gaming companies want in the first place? Recurring revenue. It's the siren song of big gaming. Every major player has decided that the sole sustainable way to stay afloat is to keep you on their teat. Some choose subscriptions, Xbox Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, and EA Play. Even companies you don't think of as gaming giants, Netflix and Amazon, they are scrambling to get their piece of the subscription gaming pie too. Or, of course, there's the endless drip feed of microtransactions in every live service game from Call of Duty to Marvel Rivals. Unlike the one-time purchase of a game, microtransactions are designed for repeated and often impulsive small-scale purchases. But whatever poison they pick, the end goal of big gaming is the same, to make you a continuous source of their revenue. But we also just found out that Valve is one of the richest companies in the world, at least when measured by employee, even richer than Netflix and Apple, and they went in a completely different direction than the rest of the industry. Or did they? That's what we're going to explore today. We're going to talk about what makes Valve so much money, how rich they truly are, and we're going to uncover the surprising truth about how their unique approach, fundamentally different from the rest of the industry, has quietly built them an empire. So let's get into it. Steam is by far Valve's biggest moneymaker, but it's unlike any other digital store we've seen, and that has a lot to do with us. We are the reason Valve is so rich, because we are willing to build a backlog even more so than players on other platforms, at least according to one market analyst, Chris Zakowski, in his recent blog post that is now making the rounds. I've read through this post a few times, and personally, I think he nails it. He says that Steam's remarkable success, especially for indie developers, stems from super die-hard hobbyists. In his post, Zukowski states that basically hobbyists buy stuff not because they actually want to consume it, but because they are collecting it. He goes on to cite data that the median Steam player has more than half of their collection unplayed. He likens this phenomenon to sundoku, which is a Japanese term that refers to the act of buying books and letting them pile up knowing that you're not going to have the time to read them. He goes on to say that this behavior is consistent across various hobbies like Lego and Warhammer. Now, this phenomenon makes so much sense to me, and it's fascinating to consider that Valve strategically amplifies it, even more so with the Steam Deck. For decades, PC gamers have had the luxury of buying games with the confidence that they could play them someday, even years down the line, because they could always upgrade their PC and play that library. The Steam Deck has really supercharged this mentality, right? Now that massive backlog isn't just for someday at your desk, it's for someday anywhere. It's a powerful psychological pull, making even more games feel like viable purchases, directly fueling our collection habit. And I think this whole backlog strategy is entirely by design on Valve's part, and it's not just Steam helping indies, but also the other way around. By my recollection, people didn't want, but instead just tolerated Steam, at least for a long time. Back in the early 2000s, PC gaming was seen as plagued with piracy, and yet still, PC gamers were simultaneously unwilling to part with their physical copies. The fact that Half-Life 2 required a Steam login to play was seen as a betrayal. But Valve proved that they were willing to make this worth our while. Steam ushered in convenience that we hadn't seen before in gaming, but it shouldn't be understated that over the coming years, Steam also brought two new things with it: amazing holiday sales that actually offered even better discounts than today's Steam sales, and indie games that at the time you really couldn't find on other platforms. Once upon a time, Steam sales offered up entire catalogs at deep discounts, so you could buy, like every Square Enix game on Steam, for under $100 total. And they would have flash sales that only lasted a few hours, but offered the deepest discounts of all. Given the nature of PC gaming, especially in contrast to console gaming, Steam players felt confident that they could build up their huge catalog and have time to play these games someday. Like I said, you can upgrade your PC years down the line and your games are still going to be playable, at least for the most part. Although the old Steam sales were better overall, the advent of Steam key sites like Indie Gala, Green Man Gaming, and others created an enhanced FOMO culture around getting the best possible bargain for games. Savvy consumers were using deal trackers like istthereanydeal.com by comparing not only to previous sales, but comparing to all previous sales on all PC marketplaces, and even tracking whether or not a game has been in a bundle. Historical low became a new, easy metric to know that you were in fact getting a good deal. At the same time that Steam sales were blowing up, Xbox was spearheading the indie game movement with XBLA's Summer of Arcade events. But Xbox was hampered by its stringent certification process, high patching costs, and a much more curated approach to publishing. This allowed Steam to rapidly gain ground and eventually overshadow XBLA as the primary destination for groundbreaking indies. 2010 to 2012 represented a huge growth period. There was suddenly a surge of innovative indie titles that you could primarily or only find on Steam. The Binding of Isaac was a title developed on Flash, and so it couldn't be ported to consoles for a long time. Space Chem was a programming puzzle game that didn't make much sense without a mouse or touch interface. Terraria melded Minecraft with pixel art and became one of the best-selling indies ever. Dear Esther was pivotal in what we today call walking simulators, and even a game like Hotline Miami was exclusive to PC for about 8 months. This reputation for being home to indies became amplified with the advent of Steam Greenlight and eventually a completely open game submission process. Together, a seemingly endless catalog of games combined with a FOMO culture around sales drove us hobbyists to buy up games that it turns out we wouldn't have time to play. And the number of games released to Steam each year compounded, which only exacerbated the trend. This ultimately cemented Steam's dominance as the primary collecting platform, and it fueled ever-growing backlogs that would become Valve's unique revenue stream. It's funny too, because Valve making money from me or you building a backlog kind of spits in the face of what nearly every other major player is desperately chasing: the subscription. And there's a reason subscriptions are so attractive to these major players. Research shows that loss aversion, decision fatigue, and the default effect all play a key role in convincing the human brain that staying subscribed is just the easier choice when compared to canceling your subscription. Loss aversion says that humans are generally more motivated to avoid a loss than to acquire an equivalent gain, and this cognitive bias has been exploited by marketing departments for decades. Likewise, humans are constantly bombarded with decisions they have to make throughout the day, and decision fatigue dictates that navigating a cancellation process adds to a mental burden, and so it's easier to just not. And then there's the default effect. Subscriptions are typically set to auto-renew, and customers have to manually opt out if they want to cancel. Here, studies show that subscribers are more likely to renew if the subscription is automatically set to do so. Kind of obvious, right? Now, there is a lot of nuance that I'm leaving out of these high-level descriptions of different cognitive biases. For example, auto-renew doesn't seem to benefit the corporation in the long term, but these corporations do seem more interested in the short term, so maybe that's the explanation there. Nonetheless, subscriptions aren't a magic pill to making money either. You have to convince the customer to subscribe in the first place. And despite those cognitive biases, people will eventually unsubscribe if you're not offering them something new. These subscriptions face another hurdle too. They're competing with the entire attention economy. Netflix's competition isn't just Disney and HBO Max, it's also TikTok and YouTube. Even just the act of doom scrolling takes time that could be spent watching the latest episodes of your favorite show. And mind you, there's only so many hours in a day, days in a week, and weeks in a year. Content is being released so frequently that it's impossible to watch every show you want to watch and play every game you want to play. This could present a problem for Game Pass, which relies on you actually spending time playing video games to justify the monthly cost. Valve ends up sidestepping this entirely. Here's a quote from the Chris Zukowski piece about this very subject. It says, "Valve cracked a problem that Netflix was struggling with. How do you sell to people who have so much entertainment at their fingertips that they don't have enough hours in a day to play and watch it all? Valve basically added infinite hours to a gamer's day. It's a theoretical future day where gamers might someday spend hours playing your game, but let's be honest, won't." This is precisely why Valve doesn't have to worry about subscriptions. They don't have to try to get you to pay every month. They know that if they provide a quality service and enough convenience, you're going to come back to grow your catalog of games that you think you're going to play someday. I see this as a sort of quiet confidence from Valve. It's like they're saying, we don't need you to commit to paying a monthly fee. We know you're going to come back for more. That confidence illustrates a contrast to other gaming corporations who scramble for money feels like trickery more often than not. Consider AAA companies that offer 3 days advance access to a new release. It doesn't add anything of real value, it's just a quick way to monetize your impatience. Full-price AAA games that launch in what feel like an unfinished state just represent a breach of trust with the customer. We're willing to forgive bugs, but past a certain point, you're asking us to buy the promise of a game that'll be good eventually. Gaming corps are constantly pushing for more, often at the expense of value or trust. And here comes Valve saying, if you want more, feel free. If not, that's cool. Now, that's not to say it's all good. At the top of the video, I drew a contrast from the backlog model to subscriptions and to microtransactions. I also said that microtransactions are designed for repeated and often impulsive small-scale purchases. Plot twist, when I think about my backlog purchases, they too feel a lot like a bunch of impulsive small-scale purchases. I've had times where I am more responsible or less responsible, but when I look at my purchases more historically, they're not exactly rational. I buy games because they're on sale and I expect to play them later this year, or maybe just because it's made by a developer that I want to support. And then there are certainly times where I bought games just because I got 10 titles for $10, and I thought, certainly there's going to be something in here that's going to delightfully surprise me. The hidden gem lottery is real, and I know people have bought games just to make their library a little bigger, and I understand that too. Listen, I've never been one for cosmetic microtransactions. I'm here to play the damn game, not dress up my character. But why are we buying all these games we're not going to play if not to dress up our digital library? It turns out this seemingly irrational behavior isn't just us, it's baked into Valve's success. Chris Zukowski, that market analyst I mentioned earlier, he put it bluntly. He said, if Steam shoppers were rational and only bought games they were going to play, we would sell a lot fewer games. Half this industry would be gone. Irrational though it may be, it's also kind of wholesome in a way. Like I said, sometimes we just want to be delightfully surprised by a hidden gem, and if we get that hit of dopamine, we're going to recommend that game to a friend, and maybe we'll follow the game developer so we can find out when they make a next game. I don't know about you, but I love that feeling of finding a studio that makes amazing games that not a lot of people are talking about. Case in point, my current obsession is Strange Scaffold, who focus on making really good AA games really quickly. So far, they're nailing it, and in different genres too. They have a TMNT Tactics game that is a banger. They have a first-person shooter called I Am Your Beast that's designed with speedrunning in mind and is heavily focused on beating your own and your friends' best times. And then they have El Paso Elsewhere, which plays like Max Payne, but with supernatural neo-noir elements that have you battling vampires. The point is, they're awesome. Go buy their games. I made this entire video just to convince you to buy their games, so just do it already. Nonetheless, that aside, I think we now have to address the elephant in the room, the Steam Deck. This entire backlog phenomenon seems deeply tied to the Steam Deck and really Valve's entire hardware strategy, including rumors about them working on a Steam console and Steam VR headset, and not in a nefarious way, just in a, oh, that makes sense kind of way. You know what I mean? Valve created the Steam Deck in part because there were employees that felt like, wouldn't it be cool if I could play my library on the go? And of course they felt that way. They're a bunch of busy grown-ups, possibly fathers and mothers like many of us are. So they didn't want to just play their games when tied to a desk. They wanted to play on a handheld to give themselves more freedom and really more time to play their back catalog of games. Steam Deck literally gives you back more time in the day to play games, which strengthens the notion that you'll have time someday to play your pile of shame, the ever-growing list of games that you own but haven't played. And this kind of works in a symbolic way too. The Steam Deck shows that Valve is going to support your library of games even when other gaming companies don't. SteamOS says you can rely on Valve even when you can't rely on Windows. Proton says you can rely on Valve to make improvements to compatibility, even if you can't necessarily rely on the game devs to do so. Trackpads, capacitive sticks, gyro, back buttons, and Steam input as a whole say that you can rely on Valve to make great accessible controls, even when you can't rely on, say, X input. And the Steam Deck as a piece of kit, especially debuting when it did, showed that you can rely on Valve for an affordable piece of gaming hardware, even when the likes of Nvidia are gouging you because AI is what is currently catching the interest of shareholders. I'm not saying that Valve is actually looking out for your best interest. It just seems to be one of the few companies that acknowledges that your interests and their interests are aligned. Public companies often bend to the will of shareholders, but with Valve, you, the purveyor of digital games, are the true and only customer. We've talked about how this makes Valve a boatload of money, but how much money is it truly? Well, it was recently revealed that Valve's profit per employee from Steam commissions alone is estimated to be $3.5 million per employee, at least as of 2021. This comes from leaked documents in a court case between Valve and Wolfire Games. This amount is significantly higher than the likes of Facebook and Apple, whose numbers are $780,000 and $476,000 per employee, respectively. The leaked document has since been pulled offline, and broadly it warrants a grain of salt, but it reportedly shows that Steam's commission revenue grew from around $100 million in 2009 to $2 billion in 2021, including an operating profit of about $1.2 billion from Steam alone. With just 336 Valve employees at the time, that brings the profit per head calculation to $3.5 million. Naturally, this calculation has two sides to it, the profit and the number of employees. It's probably safe to say that viewers of this channel are broadly well-versed in the business of Valve, and we know that Valve operates very lean. Often this is for the better, but at times you can see the flip side of this as Valve employees are often pulled in different directions, and as a result it often feels like Valve moves really slowly, including when it comes to SteamOS and especially when it comes to game development. This is probably where my strongest criticisms of Valve stem from, especially in scenarios where it gives them plausible deniability to otherwise questionable behavior. Take for example the recent criticism from a Bellular News video. This video gives two examples where companies that make a lot of money are breaking Steam's terms of service and are not being punished by Valve. These scenarios make it reasonable to ask the question, are they not getting punished because they're receiving preferential treatment, as Bellular News is alluding to, or is this just Valve not getting around to it because they've got so much going on and so few employees? Either way, these actions could jeopardize some of the trust that Valve has built up with us. One of the scenarios that Bellular points out is billion-dollar company Nexon hosting what they called a review event where they essentially bribed users to leave Steam reviews, an act that is strictly forbidden by Steam's Terms of Service, but had so far gone unpunished. Gone unchecked, this could cause players to lose trust in Steam user reviews the way that we've lost trust in Amazon reviews or mobile app store reviews. Now, I don't think Valve will ever let that happen since it undermines the backlog model after all, but no company is perfect, and this just shows that Valve's lean, decentralized structure leads to both unique drawbacks as well as unique benefits. Certainly Valve has room for improvement, but it's safe to say that I prefer Valve's operating philosophy over those of their competitors. Would we have the Steam Deck without Valve's decentralized structure leading employees to try to solve the personal problem of playing their extensive backlog away from their desk? Would Valve still be content with us just building our backlogs and not subscribing monthly if their interests were divided between customers and shareholders, similar to typical AAA gaming companies? Obviously, Valve's model is working for them, but it's working for me too. Will I ever have time to play my ridiculous backlog? No. But do I regret all of those purchases? Not yet. What about you?
The form only offer a message of division and blame. All they do is say that every social problem in our society is somehow or other the fault of extremely vulnerable minorities.
What a load of rubbish. I think we can all see straight through this absolute tossers. Clear use of emotionally manipulative language. Extremely vulnerable minorities. As if the British state doesn't favour minorities. They are more privileged in this country than the English. That is a fact. And I've covered this extensively many times. Jeremy Corbyn is an absolute disgrace, and I truly hope his terrible new party fails. In other news, here is an image from modern day Europe. A picture of two very different lives. And a Muslim account responded to this and said two different afterlives as well. Now that is a very strong claim, and I would love to see some sort of empirical evidence for this so-called afterlife. And no, the subjective ramblings of some warlord who lived around 1004 years ago is not empirical evidence for heaven or hell.
Now, this is rather wonderful footage. Watch here as Keir Starmer squirms like the ineffectual faux leader that he is as Donald Trump talks about Europe's illegal immigration crisis and the rising crime.
Europe is a much different place than it was just 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And they've got to get their act together. If they don't, you're not going to have Europe anymore as you know it. And you can't do that. This is a magnificent part of the world, and you cannot ruin it. You cannot let people come in here illegally. And what happens is there'll be murderers, there'll be drug dealers, there'll be all sorts of things that other countries don't want. And they send them to you, and they send them to us, and you've got to stop them.
And the squirming did not stop there. Starmer was then asked about whether he's envious of Trump's stellar record in resolving the illegal immigration crisis in the US.
The president makes it look easy dealing with illegal migration. You must be envious of his record in such a short period of time.
Well, I think we've been discussing irregular, illegal migration is a huge issue in both of our countries. In the United Kingdom, it is a real cause for concern, and that's why we must bear down on it in all its aspects, upstream, across Europe, where a lot of ours comes through northern France, across the Channel.
Kosher, Trump's really shown these leaders that the illegal immigration crisis can be solved. It is not an issue that's too big to have an answer. You just have to have the will and the policies to make it happen. And he's did it in such quick time. And I think that's what's shocked so many people.
That line in his State of the Union address, or joint address that he gave just weeks into his presidency, where he said, we heard for years that you needed more legislation or comprehensive immigration reform, and it turns out all you needed was a new president.
Yeah.
That's going to go down in the history books because he's done it. As you say, in less than 100 days, border crossings are virtually zero. And we all know that immigration has been really a debacle for Western countries over the last half century. he's laying that bare. He's showing that it can be turned around, and it's just making the rest of the world leaders look totally impotent and feckless, that they're not able to do this. Their populations are crying out for it. They don't want any more of it, and he can just sit there now and take a victory lap and really show them up, as he should.
Well, the solution seems to be from some of these countries, including in the UK, to crack down on free speech. And that was another topic for discussion, an issue that we know Trump cares passionately about. Let's have a look at what's happening in the UK. They've got to crack down on people who want to voice their concerns about illegal immigration. Anti-migrant posts on social media are going to be monitored by an elite police squad. And yet we've got Keir Starmer claiming that free speech is very important to him and it exists in the UK.
We discuss the importance of free speech today.
Well, free speech is very important. I don't know if you're referring to any place in particular. Perhaps they are, but
We've had free speech for a very, very long time here, so we're very proud about that.
Kosha claims they have free speech in the UK, but this latest crackdown on free speech is coming as protests outside asylum hotels have spread across the country. And we've got people right now locked up for some of them lengthy terms, around 3 years, for things they've posted in opposition to immigration.
It's outrageous. Months, even up to 3 years, as you say. One is a 55-year-old mother who was locked up. So these are not violent offenders. And this whole concept of hate speech or bigoted speech leading to these task forces for immigration. They also did it for COVID in 2020, 2021. They had a secret sort of investigative unit that was looking to combat disinformation around various COVID measures that potentially could lead to prosecutions or arrests, and I think did in some cases. So Keir Starmer is right in that there is a long history of free speech in the UK, going all the way back to the Magna Carta in 1215. That's where it all germinated out of. That's what makes it even more shameful and sad that they're doing this.
Exactly.
It has to be defended. And this issue is only going to brew. It's headed towards a collision course because in addition to arresting their own citizens like they have, they're doing things like putting these huge fines against American big tech companies who are not without sin, those big tech players. However, they're appealing all of them, and these other governments coming in and trying to find 6, 8, 10% of global revenues is going to come into Trump trade deals and other negotiations as well. So this fight is just getting started.
It's crazy. I've been seeing screen grabs that people have posted from the UK where just posts about immigration are completely blanked out. You can see them elsewhere in the world, but you can't see them in the UK.
So Akon was building a city in Africa. That's right. Let's see how it's
My lords, we now live in a world in which everyone, if they wish to, can make their views known to everybody else. And it's a world where political debate is not the preserve of a small establishment group, but is open to all. Yet not everyone seems comfortable with this. And rather than welcoming this uniquely open debating environment, we find many politicians talking of disinformation, misinformation, outright bans even on certain kinds of speech. And unfortunately, the British legislative framework gives them plenty of power to make these words reality. And of course, we've got the Online Safety Act from 2023, which criminalises false communication by an individual. It actually makes fake news literally illegal. My lords, these laws raise a number of problems. In a country where clearly there are problems of immigration and integration, one person's fair commentary is another person's abuse or insult. For example, is commenting on different characteristics of migrant communities in the UK, crime levels among such communities, is that fair political comment, or is it, quote, stirring up racial hatred? The risk of drifting over that border and committing an offence creates a chilling effect that means people are frightened to comment. Now, my lords, in my view, these laws should mostly be abolished, or at least focus much more clearly on genuine incitement. Until that happens, and I'm not exactly holding my breath about it, our only protection is a government and establishment a wider climate of opinion that supports free speech. And unfortunately, of course, we have no such thing. We know from the COVID era that the commitment to free speech is thin to start with. Politicians of all parties muse about controlling social media further. They often believe that in this new world, the ill-informed populace is easy prey to false beliefs, conspiracies, malign interference, and so on. Well, my lords, maybe some people are, though personally I trust the wisdom of the people. But even if some of our voters are ill-informed about issues, it doesn't make it the government's job to stop them talking about those issues. For one thing, the government's particularly ill-placed to do that because most misinformation actually comes from governments. Trump's supposed collusion with Russia or the COVID lab leak theory are two outstanding examples of that. My lords, I worry we're heading towards a real crisis. There has always been some censorship in Britain, more's the pity, but until recently it was more artistic and cultural rather than political. We prided ourselves on being a free country in which we could speak freely, and we simply can't say that now. We're all vulnerable. Say the wrong thing at the wrong way at the wrong moment, and any of us might find the police at our door. I hope the noble Lord, the Minister, will be able to reassure us when he responds.
In 1984 called, and he wants it.
So a couple of you guys sent me this video from the king himself, Juicehead, who does, of course, he's kind of like the definitive Bethesda channel, honestly, at this point, covering BGS stuff, Fallout stuff, Elder Scrolls stuff, all the stuff. And yes, I'm holding a cookie if you're watching the stream clip. Nikki just made them, so I'm going to eat it the second we hit play. But he made this video talking about the current state of Fallout and the various projects and stuff that are in the works. And you guys wanted my thoughts on it. I'm here for you. I'm here for you, and I'm here for Juicehead. And as always, you should get over there. You should subscribe to him. Makes great stuff. Let's see what he's got to say and what Todd has to say. Hi, Todd. Good to see you.
Let's talk about these recent Fallout leaks. Reportedly, multiple new Fallout games are in development right now, including Fallout 5, which was apparently just greenlit. Or maybe not. As exciting as this news has...
I will say at the outset, I saw this article as well. I think we talked about it on stream for all of 30 seconds. I don't think we even turned it into a clip because it was like the most hilariously stupid headline I've ever seen. It was somebody saying Fallout 5 is now fully greenlit. Yes, Captain Random Ass. Like, duh. Like, what do you mean? Of course it was greenlit. Like, they were ever not going to do it? Like, what do you mean? Like, of course. It's like the stupidest headline ever. They've decided to make that game everybody knew they were going to make. Okay. I get it, dude. July is a tough time to make gaming content. Everybody mentally checks out. I don't know why I say Captain Random Ass. I meant Captain, Captain no duh, something like that. Not my best day, okay? I'm eating a cookie. Lay off me. That being said, I don't know what else to say from this is like, other than, yeah, shocker. Captain Obvious. That's a good one. See, you should be up here, MMO. You should be up here. You've got it figured out. Captain Obvious? Yeah, that would make way more sense than whatever I said.
Or maybe not. As exciting as this news has been, almost immediately we get some pushback from other sources. So who should we believe here? What's actually going on with Fallout? And back from...
Hold on. By the way, I don't mean the above meanly. It's just over the years I've seen the same claim by media so many times, but hey, I could be wrong. From what I've heard, if it's happening, it ain't Obsidian. I know the rundown of the upcoming titles and franchises. And that's Chris Avalone. Okay, he would probably know. If that's true, I mean, that kind of, I think, shuts down Oblivion or Obsidian doing it. But I've also said, like, Obsidian is not the same Obsidian they were 15 years ago. So if you were to get Fallout New Vegas 2 from Obsidian, it would probably play like Avowed. It would probably play like the Outer Worlds, you know, like it probably would not play the way you think it would. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Doesn't mean it would be bad. It's just, I don't think you would stumble into another masterpiece that way, you know?
Other sources. So who should we believe here? What's actually going on with Fallout? And I've seen the comments. Juice said yaps too much. So if you don't care...
Dude, yapping is part of the job, man. That's what we do. That's what we do. You're fine. The yapping is good if it's on topic, if it's pertinent. That's fine. I'm yapping right now, and we have a bunch of people in here listening to me ramble about it, okay? So, like, it's totally fine. Totally fine. It's got to be on topic, though. Got to be on topic. I get it.
I get it. Speaking of on topic, look at this this really cool sapling thing. I have to put it on my headset. Our friend Abby made it. She crocheted it. It's like a little sapling. You hang it from like your headphone or whatever. I can't get it to attach though. It doesn't fit on these headphones, but it's really cute. Anyway.
About all of these details and just kind of want my quick take, timestamps below. Basically, all of this recent Fallout news has stemmed from the mass layoffs at Microsoft. 9,000 people were laid off, including tons from Xbox. This dominated online discourse, and the discussion about the future of Xbox and their IPs made—
Oh, dude, this one. Yeah, this dude. Is he going to show the clip? I think so. Dude, this clip was so... I love Jake. I've met him a few times. Super kind guy, always wears the freshest shoes. Ralph is a giant. He's like 7.5 feet tall. He's huge. Also, nice guy. I don't think I've ever spoken to him, but I've seen him around at events and stuff, but we never are like, I see him from across the street or whatever, but it's fine. This gentleman, he runs one of the websites, what is it, VGC or something? He'll probably say, but he says like, yeah, they're working on multiple Fallout projects, including the one you're excited about. And then they just, like, they do not bring it up. They ask him, like, what he's drinking or something. Like, they no follow-up. It was, like, blew my mind. I was like, no, ask him about that. Clarify. I want to know more. But they just, like, moved on. It was frustrating.
made its way onto the Friends Per Second podcast, where Jordan Midler, a reporter at the Video Game Chronicle, did say,
Fallout is the big one. I cannot believe that they didn't immediately start work on a Fallout 5 because Todd's not going to make it. Todd is not.
No, Todd, no. He means he's going to retire. I don't know if Todd's retiring, dude. I don't think he retires till after Fallout 5. I don't think he's retiring till he's like in his mid 60s, late 60s. I think he sees it through like the late 2030s. I kind of have Jake's face with this one. He's like, no, he's not going to make it. He's going to retire before that. I don't think so. And he's saying like, you got to skip Elder Scrolls 6 and you got to get straight to Fallout 5. Fallout's big, dude. Elder Scrolls is also huge. Okay. I feel like we're not giving Elder Scrolls enough credit.
Todd's not going to make it, man. He's not going to make the game. He will make it to that point of life, hopefully, at the time of...
He won't make it to that point of life. It sounds like he's saying he's going to die. I know he means he's going to retire, but dude, it sounds like you're saying he's going to die.
Todd's not going to make it, man. He's not going to make the game. He will make it to that point of life, hopefully.
He won't make it to that point of life.
At the time of recording. But when he's done with the next Elder Scrolls, I can fully see him being like, okay, I'm done. I'm an older guy now. They should... Yeah. There are multiple Fallout projects in development.
Okay, real quick before he says that. He's like, how old is he? He's like 50 something. He's like 52.
He's not that old. He really is not that old. Hold on. He's 54, born in 1970. So he will be what, by 2035 when they put out Fallout 5, probably more like 2032 or something. But by the time they put it out, he'll be like early 60s. That's not crazy, dude. Like that's mid-aged. He's got that in him. Okay. I feel like we're talking about him like he's 95 years old right now. He's 54. He'll be fine, dude. He'll be totally fine. It's like, no, it's all over, man. He's done. It's like, no. I think he's got plenty more runway. He can't even withdraw from his 401k until he's like 65.
I'm an older guy now. They should. Yeah. There are multiple Fallout projects in development, including, as far as I'm aware, that one you're all wanting. But it's not far enough along to say anything that is like, you're going to be playing this game anytime soon. Fallout 5 should have been day one. Okay, we own these motherfuckers now. Let's get a game that says Fallout 5 on it out on the shelves. And they didn't bother.
And he cuts it there because there's no follow-up. They ask him about like what drinks he's drinking, which is frustrating. Because be like, no, which one are you talking about? Are you saying Fallout New Vegas 2 or a remake? Like, clarify. But anyway, separate issue. I think I love those guys. But I was like, ask him a question. I don't think they needed to rush Fallout 5, but I think they should have had another Fallout project. I'm okay if they were to do another. Like, I think they could have done a Fallout New Vegas remake or remaster. That will print money. I think if they were to also do like a Fallout New Vegas 2, that could do well. But I think that I don't know if there's a team that could make a game that lives up to the hype of that. You know, like Fallout New Vegas was sort of a cult classic. It was very successful, but it was kind of like an accidental masterpiece. You know, they had 18 months to put it together and stumbled into this thing that was surprisingly fantastic, though broken. But I think if you announce Fallout New Vegas 2, people are expecting a 9 or a 10 out of 10. And I don't know what team they have that they could hand the game to that could achieve that. I don't know who could actually realistically achieve that. I don't even know if Bethesda could. I just think it's different now.
There's a lot to unpack there, but the big reveal is multiple new Fallout games are on the way, including the big one. There's been a lot of interpretations as to what that actually means, but to me, the big one is New Vegas 2, and even shortly thereafter, Jordan Midler says that.
Anyway, New Vegas 2 coming soon.
I do think you...
I interpreted that as a joke, though, because this is after they joked around a little bit. And he's like, anyway, New Vegas 2 coming. I thought that was more of a joke, but maybe he is literally saying that that's the big one. I don't know.
He was partly joking there, but the one we're all wanting is New Vegas 2. This has dominated headlines for years now, but originally it was more of just a moniker to reflect a new Obsidian Fallout game.
This is also why, this is exactly the same reason why I've said, I don't know if there's ever going to be like a Bloodborne remake or remaster or whatever, because this is the amount of reporting you get on Fallout New Vegas 2 being teased, potentially in the works, early talks in Microsoft, like all of these articles from all sorts of different pretty big outlets, VGC, Windows Central, The Gamer, and it still hasn't materialized. There's still people also reliable who are saying it's not happening. And I'm like, if Bloodborne 2 or Bloodborne Remake or something was happening, they would definitely be reporting on it. There would be leaks, there'd be stuff, we would know about it by now. Like, I don't know how you keep that secret. And the fact that we haven't heard anything about it makes me think that it really probably is not happening, because if it were even in the talks, I think you'd start to get reports about it.
Now, but originally it was more of just a moniker to reflect a new Obsidian Fallout game. Like when I say New Vegas 2, I don't literally mean a direct sequel to Fallout New Vegas. And we've heard lots of rumors around Obsidian and Fallout. The head of Obsidian wants to work on Fallout before they retire. Supposedly talks of Obsidian and Fallout happened internally. Jordan Midler literally reported on this leak back in 2022. Josh Sawyer has been saying for years that he is interested in working on Fallout again. And late last year, the original lead writer on Fallout New Vegas took a creative director job at Obsidian.
Which is also funny. You know what job he was doing for the last handful of years? Do you know where he left? What was he working on through like the mid-20-teens? Anybody know? Anybody know? Mr. got it. I almost said your full name. That could have got me in trouble. Mr. did it. Yep. He worked and was hired by Guerrilla, and he did all the writing to start off the Horizon series. So they brought him in to dig them out of a narrative trench they were in for Horizon Zero Dawn. Yep.
He is saying it's not New Vegas 2, but it is an opportunity that he straight up couldn't resist. And a potential Obsidian Fallout wouldn't even be all we're getting, as reportedly there are multiple Fallout games in the works right now. So perhaps we have a situation where a Fallout 3 remaster, New Vegas 2, and then Fallout 5 are all coming, but apparently Fallout 5's not coming from Todd Howard. Jordan Midler saying Todd Howard isn't going to do Fallout 5 seemed more like speculation on his side. It's seemingly based off the fact that he thinks Todd Howard is done after the Elder Scrolls 6. But in my last video,
I don't know, he was making it sound like Todd was going to drop dead of old age. And the dude's 54. Like, it gave off the energy of, like, you know, even though I think Midler seems to be older, maybe like 30s or something. It gave off the energy of, like, the Gen Z guy who's like, I don't want to be 30. That's mid-age. So I'll have a midlife crisis. And it's like, bro, 30 is not middle age. Like, what are you talking about? They gave off that energy, you know, where it's just like, no, he's not that old. He's 54, man. He's got a long runway ahead of him.
Though I did find something interesting around this. Back in 2022, Todd Howard said Fallout 5 is next after the Elder Scrolls 6.
Elder Scrolls 6 is in pre-production, and, you know, we're going to be doing Fallout 5 after that. So our slate's pretty full going forward.
And a lot of the articles you could find out there right now do reference this quote from 2022. But in 2023, Todd Howard clarified.
And then last year when we talked, you said, yep, Fallout 5, I want to do that. That'll be next.
That was more of like a general, it will clearly be after Elder Scrolls 6 at some point.
Okay,
That's like, let me clarify that one.
And even in...
So is he saying that they might do Starfield 2 after Elder Scrolls 6? Dude, can you even begin to imagine how freaking funny that would be? If people are already like, it's insane that Fallout 4 came out 2015 and we're having to wait till 2035 for Fallout 5. 20 years. And Todd's like, well, actually, you're going to be waiting until 2040 because we're working on Starfield 2 first. It's going to be way bigger and better than you could possibly imagine. 16 times the load screens. Why would he feel the need to clarify? It seems like a no-duh thing. Like, yeah, you're going to make Fallout 5 after Elder Scrolls 6. Why would he now take the step to clarify and be like, no, like leave the door open?
After
I want to do that. That'll be next.
That was more of like a general, it will clearly be after Elder Scrolls 6 at some point.
Okay,
That's like, let me clarify that.
And like, why not just say, yeah, it's next? If it's next, is he just being coy for the sake of being coy? Does he just want it to be mysterious for the sake of being mysterious? Like, why not just leave it clear? Yeah, it's next. I don't understand. Sorry, Chancellor, I took so long to do the candle. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
And even in 2024, when asked again, he doesn't specify things one way or another.
I'm going to avoid putting dates on anything. I've learned that the hard way. So obviously our focus as far as new development right now is Elder Scrolls 6, but that doesn't mean that we're not making plans for other things. We're still doing a lot of work, obviously, with Fallout 76. We see the community, so many people going into that game, kind of rediscovering it, just happy to see where the game is. Dude, I just had a terrifying thought creep into my head. You know how Bethesda likes to make sure there's a live service version of their IP before working on other stuff? You know how Bethesda wanted to make a live service Fallout before working on Starfield and Elder Scrolls, so there'd be a Fallout game to enjoy during the development time? Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. What if after this they want to do a live service Starfield? What if after this they wanted to do an MMO Starfield monstrosity? Starfield 76, yeah. That thought just creeped into my head for the first time. And it's a horrifying thought. It would be really funny if they got Starfield 76 out before Star Citizen. That would be really freaking funny. But, oh God.
Which is weird. We all assume Fallout 5's after the Elder Scrolls 6, so why not say it during—
Yeah, but you know what assuming does? Makes an ass out of you and me. Probably shouldn't assume that, especially if Todd is walking things back. You know, he said Fallout 5's after that. Why would he feel the need to clarify that it might not be immediately after?
In the Mr. Matty Plays interview last year, Todd Howard also said they're not in a rush to get the next Fallout game out sooner.
You know, we don't feel like we need to rush any of that. You know, right now, the Fallout TV show fills a certain niche in terms of the franchise and storytelling. Totally get the desire for a new kind of mainline single-player game. I don't think it's bad for people to miss things.
We've known the Elder—
That answer, though, I remember that one. That answer was very specifically in response to Maddie asking him about, it was specifically like about the process of having something to fill the void. So something like a New Vegas between 3 and 4, having, you know, some smaller experience to hold fans over until then. And he specifically brought up Fallout 76, and he says we don't need to rush things. It's okay to miss things, which I think is all true. But I think it's also like, this is the thing for us to be honest with ourselves about. Even though we look at Fallout 76 and we say that does not tide me over, you know, we are effectively going without Fallout for 20 years between major releases because we're not interested in the live service offering. But for Todd and BGS, I think for them, they view it as an offering that has something new and fresh every 6 months. It's not that bad. No, I agree. Like at this point, Fallout 76, pretty solid. The people who like it really, really like it, but it is a fundamentally different thing than what you get with like a Fallout 4 or a Fallout 5. Like, it's just a different experience, and it's designed to be a different experience because it's a living, breathing game. Like, has to be. But I think for them, they view it as that offering. They view it as basically the New Vegas. It's the thing to tide you over, you know? And so, you know, it's perhaps a faulty assumption to think that we're going to get something else, because I think they view Fallout 76 as tiding the fan base over until the next thing.
Elder Scrolls 6 was next up for Bethesda for almost a decade. We actually knew about the Elder Scrolls 6 before we knew about Fallout 76. So the caginess around Fallout 5 being Bethesda Game Studios' next game does make me wonder if Jordan Midler was onto something here. Maybe Fallout 5 isn't coming from Bethesda Game Studios, or at the very least, it isn't coming next from them.
Oh. So here's the interesting thing. In the context of what we're describing, where it's thought that Fallout 70 or Fallout 5 is coming in like early 2030s, Todd will be in his early 60s. Not that big of a deal. But if they're planning to do Starfield 76 and maybe a new IP or something, whatever it is, in the interim between Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5, that pushes Fallout 5 into the, like, literally into the 2040s, putting it 25, 30 years after Fallout 4, which is upsetting. In which case, Bethesda's next game would not, like Fallout game, would not be until Todd is like in his mid 70s. I don't think Microsoft would let them wait that long. I agree. I don't think they'd let Fallout wait that long. But I think if Microsoft were told by Bethesda, hey, we're going to make a space live service game like Fallout 76, because Fallout 76 apparently makes pretty decent money. They introduced that $100 a year subscription, and we all made fun of it. There's a lot of people that pay for it. And I think for Microsoft, they care more about that than letting Fallout sit vacant. So they very well could give Fallout to another studio to make another Fallout game while they work on Starfield 76 or whatever it is. And then they would go and do that. Yeah, it's possible. Isn't Starfield just Star Citizen? I think Star Citizen's more technologically advanced and impressive. Well, I don't think it is. But I think Bethesda seemingly can actually put out a finished game. I'm not sure because they closed or shut down Blackbird to greenlight this just from scratch. Well, Jeannie, we don't know that for sure because my suspicion and my theory has been one of the major components for them shutting down Blackbird and the ZeniMax Online game is because they had just unionized. Like a lot of the biggest layoffs within the gaming side of Microsoft's business specifically hit the companies and groups that had just unionized. So, you know, maybe for them it's just a coincidence, but I mean, I don't think it's that big of a coincidence. So I don't know how much I buy that, you know, they were disconnected, but you know, if that's the case, if Jordan Midler knows something and is like, hey, after Elder Scrolls 6, they're doing something else. They're doing like Starfield 76 or whatever it is. Or a new IP or whatever, maybe he's like, yeah, no, they won't get to Fallout till Todd's in his mid 70s and he's out by then. That makes a lot more sense. That makes a lot more sense than what we have been thinking, which is that it's like early 2030s. But dude, I swear to God, if I have to wait 25, 30 years for another Fallout, can you imagine? Oh my God. Andrew, golly. Andrew just gifted 10 memberships on YouTube.
That's most definitely what's up.
Hell yeah, that's crazy. Welcome everybody. My goodness, welcome everybody. Yeah, big dubs in the chat. Hell yeah. Welcome everybody. If you just got gifted a membership, get over to the Discord. Connect your Discord account in the connections tab to your YouTube account. Get in the server. Join us. It'll be awesome. Okay? Hells yeah. Thank you. Thank you. That's baller, Andrew.
But maybe Obsidian's not making a Fallout game either, because then Chris Avallone responded to this rumor on Twitter saying, no, but possibly New Vegas headline is used so often to generate clicks for media sites to the point it's mostly noise by now. By the way, I don't mean the above meanly, it's just over the years I've seen the same claim by media so many times. But hey, I could be wrong, but from what I've heard, if it's happening, it ain't Obsidian. I know the rundown of their upcoming titles and franchises. So Chris Avallone saying that if there's a new Fallout game, it's not going to be Obsidian who's making it, which does seem to go against that New Vegas 2 take from Jordan Midler. Assuming he actually meant New Vegas 2, he never technically clarifies that. And this one's complicated. I don't really know.
Yeah, I got, oh, what a name. I'm sorry. The name jump scared me. I wasn't ready for that name. Wow. Dude, and he works in games media. Granted, this from 2010, but poor guy, dude. Continuing on. Anyway, take it away, guy.
If we should believe Chris Avallone here, because on one hand, he is the co-founder of Obsidian. He worked on many of their most popular games, but also left the company 10 years ago and on bad terms. He later went on to say how Obsidian silenced him and tried to force him to never work on RPGs again. But then there was a thread where another former Obsidian employee pushed back against some of what Chris Avellone was saying. The whole situation is messy, but what we do know is Chris Avellone does not like Obsidian management, or the head of Obsidian right now, who is the other co-founder of the studio and current studio head. After news came out in 2018 that Microsoft was buying Obsidian, Avellone said, "Good devs, terrible management. Hire the devs, fire the chaff at the top." So Chris Avellone says no Obsidian Fallout game, and actually he isn't the only one to say that. Jeff Grubb was the original leak that Obsidian and New Vegas 2 talks were starting to happen internally at Microsoft. Last year, on a podcast with Jeff Grubb, Lex Luddy, another gaming journalist, corroborated that talks about a New Vegas 2 did in fact happen in 2022. But reportedly, there is currently no Fallout in development, and it is very unlikely that Obsidian are going to be the people to make the next Fallout. Apparently, this wasn't just a Bethesda thing. Like, hey, we don't want someone else making this game. It was also partly Obsidian going, this would be a huge scale for us that we have backed away from. And well, that would be surprising, because just over a bit before this quote, the head of Obsidian did say publicly he wants to make a Fallout game before he retires.
But it's also, like, with this stuff, it's so important to remember the context of when these things are said. Like, it's not like the Obsidian CEO issues a press statement just saying, I would love to make a Fallout game. Like, that's not what happens. What happens is he's at an event or something and a journalist asks him, hey, can we get a Fallout New Vegas 2? And he's like, I can't say anything now. We're not working on anything right now. But of course, I would love to make another Fallout before I retire. And that's what gets clipped, and that's what gets the article generated. It's far from like a conclusive thing. Oh, so he's saying that it could happen. He's saying, no, of course I would love to go. Like, you know, it's like if you guys ask me, hey, Luke, would you like to travel to Santa Monica, California? And I go, of course, I would love to go to Santa Monica, California. That wouldn't be a quote to clip and be like, see, confirmed, Luke's working for Naughty Monica in Santa Monica, California. Like, it doesn't connect. It's just like a question that led to that statement that now you're clipping for the sake of getting an article, you know?
But at the same time, Obsidian kind of backed away from larger scale games with Avowed. Avowed began as a huge open world multiplayer Skyrim, but by release, the game ended up rebooted twice with smaller scale open zones because that's what worked in the Outer Worlds. And even some of the other sources we talk about in this video, like Jez Corden, have said they haven't heard any concrete leaks on Obsidian making a Fallout game. But speaking of, Jez Corden also weighed in, claiming that as a result of all of this, Fallout 5 was fully greenlit.
What I do know is that Fallout 5 is fully greenlit now.
Which again feels...
I mean, like, again, I heard that clip and I don't know why people are running with it like it's a great revelation. It's like, yeah, they're going to make a Fallout 5. Like, what does that mechanically mean? Does it mean that they cut the check for the first phase of development and then they set up the milestones for the rest of the publishing? Like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Feels like very notable news. Fallout 5 wasn't greenlit already? That just happened? I don't personally think I could do Xbox's job, but definitely seems like they're doing a bad job. How is this stuff just happening now? And Jez Corden does expand on all of this, relating it to the recently cancelled ZeniMax Online Studios MMO.
From what I heard, it was a case of, do we want to sink a ton of money into getting this to a point where it can compete with the established players on the market? Or do we want to allocate that investment towards making Fallout 5? The program to...
Yeah, but that implies that they weren't going to do it before. Like, I'm sorry. Jez has gotten some stuff wrong in recent memory, and I feel like this one, I'm just like, so you're suggesting that they were like, well, we can put this out and crank up the budget, or we can work on Fallout 5, as if they're mutually exclusive. Fallout 5, like, it's going to happen regardless. I don't think... Like, as much as we make fun of Phil Spencer and stuff, I don't think in any world, like, Fallout 5 is, should we do this? I don't see that happening.
Expand Fallout in general. That's where they've decided to make the investments.
And honestly, that does make a bit of sense. It pretty closely aligns to the internal memo that Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, sent out after the layoffs went live. To position gaming for enduring success and allow us to focus on strategic growth areas, we will end or decrease work in certain areas of the business and follow Microsoft's lead in removing layers of management to increase agility and effectiveness.
He also lied, though, because he said that they were laying people off in layers of management, and then it turned out that the people they laid off at King were level designers for Candy Crush, and they were replaced with the AI tools they built. So Phil said publicly that they were removing layers of management. What he meant was layers of people managing the AI tools that are going to replace them. You know, like, I don't know if I buy that, you know. Like, so inspiring. It's just, I think I wouldn't read much more into this. It's corporate doublespeak that has 5 different meanings, and none of them are the actual meaning. He said it was just layers of management, ended up literally having the devs dig their own graves before shooting them and shoving them in, and having the AI fill in the hole. Like, yeah, anyway, I could ramble about that a lot.
But almost immediately, this got debunked, at least sort of. In a thread on Reset Era discussing Jez's comments, Jason Schreier weighed in, saying Xbox didn't lay off thousands of people so they could move those resources to new projects.
Thank you, Jason. I swear, sometimes it's just like, guys, think for 2 seconds. They're gonna make Fallout regardless. It's not like, oh, well, if we let them do this, we can't make Fallout 5. Like, no, you're going to find a way to do Fallout 5. Like, what are we talking about?
They laid off thousands of people to cut their overall fiscal year budget. Many people immediately came at Jez after this, but I don't really view these as contradictory. Jez is saying they didn't want to spend the money to get Blackbird to release, and instead will budget towards surefire things, such as more Fallout games, while Jason is saying they didn't lay off a bunch of people to move those people to new projects.
I think what Jez was suggesting was that they were going to lay off the people working on Blackbird, the ZeniMax Online game, so that they could then greenlight Fallout 5. That's what he said. Like, so they shut this down so they can do this. But Jason's like, no, of course they were always going to do this. Like, the motivation was not, well, we got to do this so we can do this. That was never the motivation. The motivation was Satya Nadella came down with his CFO and said, you're going to cut this many jobs and you're going to trim the budget by this amount. They said, okay. And they started looking for where they would do the cuts. This is how it works in corporate America across the board. And they looked at, I think, their options, and they said, okay, a really risky live service game that's super freaking expensive, and it's being produced by a studio that just unionized, so it's going to be even more expensive to produce. And, you know, they have all of these, protections for the developers to make it so they can't just like work crazy overtime and stuff. And so the game's going to take even longer to work out. So I think Microsoft just was like, okay, well, they unionized. Oh, funny thing. You're all fired. I think that's what happened. I don't think like Fallout 5 really came into the question or the equation at all when it came to shutting down the ZeniMax project. I don't see it. It doesn't make sense.
It was to cut overall costs, which, yeah, Xbox...
yeah, everyone knows. Microsoft loves unions historically. They're really passionate about them.
The whole is shrinking now. They're focusing more on what has worked in the past. The days of fully original and experimental games are likely behind us now. Instead, we're going to see a lot more sequels and surefire IPs, which if you're a Fallout fan, seemingly means more Fallout games. It seems like as a part of the strategy, more Fallout games are coming, at least that's what these insiders are leaking. In a Fallout podcast, Jez did clarify things even further, saying how he now has more sources, and after the all-hands-on meeting at Microsoft, someone literally asked why Blackbird was cancelled, and the response was to make strategic bets in other areas. But apparently at this meeting there was no explicit mention of Fallout or Fallout 5, but yeah, Fallout is one of the most valuable IPs at Microsoft right now. It makes sense for them to devote more resources to this area. So to summarize all of this, insiders believe that Xbox is shifting strategy. For whatever reason, even though they've owned Fallout since 2021, they actually weren't working on Fallout games this whole time. But now they...
Dude, I'm sorry. Can we just appreciate how powerful this revolver has to be to like 2-tap power armor like that? Look at this. It's a knight captain, and this revolver is 2-tapping him in the dome.
To summarize all of this, insiders believe that Xbox is shifting strategy. For whatever reason, even though they've owned Fallout since 2021, they actually weren't working on Fallout games this whole time. But now they are, because Xbox is focusing on the things they think will sell well. But this does likely mean these new Fallout games are still years away. It's only beginning development now. And rumors are multiple games are now in development. Fallout 5 is greenlit, but more games beyond that are coming. But there are doubts that Bethesda is working on this game, and people have mixed opinions on whether Obsidian is involved or not. So who's making this new Fallout game, and how many games are we even getting? The easy and expected one is Fallout 3 Remastered. I've heard this directly from a source that, yeah, it's real, it's coming, and it's on this officially leaked roadmap, but it's likely years away.
I've also heard people casually mention it, like it's like, Yeah, it's gonna rain on Friday. Like I heard one person involved with Xbox who was like, yeah, and then like you know, they got Fallout 3 remake, and you know, just like casually mentioning it like it's nothing. So yeah, it's happening. It makes too much sense. And
on this roadmap, it is 2 years after Oblivion Remastered, so I wouldn't expect this one till around 2027.
Yeah, this one, pretty much all of the timelines shifted forward by a couple of years. Of course, Ghostwire Tokyo's sequel. I don't think we're gonna get that. I think that's probably not coming. But you can see Starfield, they expected in 21. It came out 2 years later. Indiana Jones, they expected in 22. It came out 2 years later. Doom, they expected, this event eventually was Dark Ages. That was expected in 23, came out 2 years later. So like all of these things shifted forward basically 2 years. So I think it would make sense if Fallout 3 also got booped back by 2 years to like 2026. I think that lines up pretty well. And that might be the setup for season 3 of the show, is maybe season 3 of the show goes to Washington, and that's when they drop, you know, the Fallout 3 remaster or something. I don't know. They should have had New Vegas remastered for season 2, but
it's 2 years after Oblivion Remastered, so I wouldn't expect this one till around 2027. Beyond that, when you start looking out at who makes sense to make the next Fallout game if we're not immediately going to Bethesda Game Studios, Obsidian really makes the most sense. But perhaps they aren't doing it and have something else up their sleeve? Some kind of unannounced project did pop up at Obsidian back in mid-2024, but with so many people saying now that they aren't working on Fallout, or they haven't heard they're working on Fallout, I just can't imagine they're actually a year deep on a Fallout game. So either way, this is kind of bad news.
Let's see. Microsoft revenue surges as AI spending pays off. They hit Q4. No, let's see. Yeah, Q4. This is crazy, dude. This is unreal. They just had their meeting, their earnings call. Okay. From Yahoo Finance, Q4 earnings estimate was 7.3.89 billion. They took in 76.44 billion. Earnings per share, they estimated $3.37. They actually achieved $3.65. The intelligent cloud revenue, AI revenue, was expected to be 29.1 billion. They pulled off 29.88 billion. Operating income was expected to be 32.14. They achieved 34.32. And the productivity and business processes expectations were 32.14 billion, and they achieved 33.11. They demolished earnings. It's a good day to be a Microsoft investor, I'll tell you what. My goodness, that's wild. That's wild. So yeah, they're doing just fine. They're doing just fine. But that's part of the reason they do all these layoffs right before, so profits surge and operating profits surge and everything. Like this is why they do it right at the end of the quarter. This is why they do it. So yeah, they just had earnings and they did quite well. Is this finance, Luke speaking? Yes, sorry. I blacked out for like 2 seconds. What's happening? I don't know.
Either there is no Obsidian Fallout game on the way, or based off these leaks, Obsidian Entertainment is only just starting work on a Fallout game, so we're likely looking at 4+ years before we hear or can play this thing.
I also think, again, it's important to just remember that, you know, we're of course big into Obsidian because they made New Vegas, but the Obsidian of 2025 is very different from the Obsidian of 2010. Just to, again, remember Avowed was originally supposed to be a big co-op multiplayer game, and it was like rebooted with different directors 2 or 3 separate times. And even I believe the game director of Avowed, she just left the studio like a matter of weeks after Avowed launched. So I don't know if they would actually deliver the thing people like hope that they would. You know, to be fair, Josh Sawyer is there, John Gonzalez is there, game director and lead writer for New Vegas. Yes. But, you know, I think as time has gone by, it's become clear that I think the Obsidian that made like Stick of Truth and Fallout New Vegas, I think that is a different company than they are today. I don't think they're a bad company today. I just think that right now they specialize in these smaller packages, these more bite-sized games like Avowed, like Outer Worlds. We'll see how Outer Worlds 2 is. That's coming this year as well. Which, speaking of, I feel like nobody's talking about that game. Like, nobody's talking about Outer Worlds 2, which is weird to me. But we'll see how that is. Hopefully that's good. I just don't know if they're the company to pull off like a New Vegas 2.
Another big name to pop out here is Brian Fargo, the head of In Exile Entertainment, and things could get really unique here. Brian Fargo also led Interplay, which made Fallout 1, 2, and In Exile made Wasteland 3, which is heavily inspired by those older Fallout games, but of course it's top down. Back in 2021, both Spunger on Reset Era, a guy to leak a bunch of events.
Yeah, but dude, I think Baldur's Gate 3 showed that this, like, the stigma against top-down gameplay is largely, I think people are loud until the game is good. Like, Baldur's Gate 3 showed you can have a top-down game that is very successful. Yeah, do cutscenes, do stuff like that. That's great. Dialogue, you know, in typical third-person style. But I think the top-down thing, it used to be viewed as like you cannot have a big AAA game do well with that style. Now I don't think that follows. So I think that we very well could see a new Fallout game in that same style that could do really, really well. Yeah, the classic CRPG style. I think you could do that. Like if they announced a Fallout game that is really, really intense and robust in terms of role play and is like those old school Fallout games, I think that could pop off, dude. I really do.
Avowed stuff, as well as the Xbox YouTuber Dealer Gaming, claimed that In Exile was on an Unreal Engine 5 Fallout project. Dealer Gaming doesn't even make videos anymore, and it doesn't seem like there was a secret Fallout project in the works this entire time, but In Exile also had a former game designer on LinkedIn say they were doing research and setting development for an upcoming game based on an established IP. So I would say it's really, really unlikely they're working on something Fallout, but there could be clues. There's been leaks that they're working on Fallout in the past, I just don't personally believe them. A modern remake of Fallout 1 or 2 could be really cool, and Exile would be the perfect company to do that. A lot of the design choices from Wasteland 3 could make a lot of sense in a modern take on Fallout. That game's really good if you haven't played it. As well as the success of Baldur's Gate 3 provides a really nice blueprint for In Exile to succeed here. But at the same time, I don't see how all of these leaks say there are no Fallout games anytime soon if this one's secretly been in development since 2021. That's kind of the big issue we keep coming up against here. We all want a Fallout game out soon, but it really seems like Bethesda and Xbox just dropped the ball here. There's nothing in the works that's ready to release anytime soon.
I think it just shows the fundamental disconnect, though, between the single-player fan base and the guys in charge right now. Because I like, we've heard it from Todd. How many times does he have to say it before we believe him? Where he has said repeatedly that they view Fallout 76 as that filler game. Like, Maddie asks him, what about New Vegas, a game to hold over Fallout players between the big waits between Fallout 4 and Fallout 5? And he brings up Fallout 76. Like, they clearly view the live service offering as that filler game. And I think they thought Fallout 76 will give that an update when the Fallout show launches, and that'll tide over the fans. Like, there is a fundamental disconnect between their perception of the fan base and the like narrative single player fan base, and that's what I find really frustrating. I understand some people love Fallout 76, and I'm glad they have that and can enjoy that, but for me it's really frustrating to not have anything for 20 to 30 years in the Fallout like IP. It's crazy to me.
There is a weird situation with the ZeniMax Online Studios devs. Their game got canceled, that's Blackbird, but since they formed a union, and that union hasn't finished negotiating severance packages with Microsoft before all of these layoffs started, none of those people have been laid off yet. There's some hope that something happens here. I've seen speculation that a ZeniMax Online Studios Fallout project could come out of all of this. They obviously already work on the Elder Scrolls Online, so perhaps a new Fallout could be in their wheelhouse. But to be frank, I think most of these people will sadly just lose their jobs. It just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, again, because I think a major component for why they were chosen was because they unionized. Again, I don't think it's a coincidence.
Speaking to some people in the know, the overall sentiment I've heard from Xbox/Bethesda is that this isn't the end of layoffs. As bad as things are right now, it seems like more could be coming.
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%. Yeah, anybody who tells you that the layoffs are done has no idea what they're talking about. Okay, like I think they're gonna get more budget cuts from Papa Satya, and I think when they're trying to choose where to make layoffs, I think they will literally like sort their company list by unionization and stuff like that. BGS has a union. They represent 241 developers across Rockville, Austin, and Dallas. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see BGS layoffs. I don't think it'll affect Elder Scrolls 6, but like they were technically one of the first to unionize. So I would keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on that. To be clear, I'm not happy about this. I'm just saying that Microsoft has a history of coincidentally laying off people specifically that have recently unionized. So I think like they have multiple studios. They have Dallas, they have, you know, Austin, and they also have another one. I think, is it in, well, Rockville's the main one, but I think they have another team that specifically works on the mobile games. I forget where that one is. Like Montreal, maybe. I'm not sure. But anyway, you know, I think that there will be more layoffs without a doubt. And this is far from the end of it.
If Bethesda is working on Fallout 5, we would hopefully get some kind of confirmation.
It's bad optics, but since when do they care about optics? We notice it. We talk about it. The game press talks about it. But the vast majority of console sales, of game copy sales, Game Pass subscriptions, they are not watching YouTubers or streamers talk about the game's layoffs. Like, you know, I might do a video on the main channel about a round of layoffs that does 250,000 views or something, where somebody sat down to watch and learn about that thing. But I mean, if they lose 250,000 sales, which they won't from that story, but even if they did, that's like a drop in the bucket. Like they just don't care that much.
Of this in an interview here relatively soon. They would likely start working on a Fallout 5 right around now as the Elder Scrolls 6 moves further and further into production. Concept and pre-production work on Fallout 5 would typically be beginning around now. One direction this could go that would really excite me is Bethesda Game Studios Austin being built out into a proper Fallout studio, or maybe just a totally new studio within Bethesda Game Studios being established to work on Fallout. Bethesda Game Studios Santa Barbara as the new Fallout focused studio feels like such a good way to keep this IP active long term. It of course doesn't mean good news in the short term, we still are years away from that next game, but hopefully it would mean the 2030s don't have crazy gaps between game releases.
Yeah, maybe that's the strategy, is to just set it up so you have Maryland that handles Elder Scrolls, and then they have Austin or Dallas or something that handles Fallout, and they have another team that handles Starfield, and that's just what they do. They just pump out games and they all specialize in their own IP, and so they can really get to know it well. That's what a lot of these companies do. I mean, you even have it at Ubisoft where you have the Assassin's Creed teams that are specifically like experts in their field. And then you have, you know, the Rainbow Six teams, and they break it up that way. Maybe that's their ultimate goal. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like when Todd started at BGS, they were making little like Terminator games and stuff, sports games. And, you know, now by the time he retires, they will have blown up Bethesda Game Studios into like an international video game powerhouse that has hundreds and hundreds of devs across all their studios and stuff. Like it's pretty ridiculous, but he took it from like a little bitty thing, got in charge, and just blew it up.
But as Jason Schreier said, they didn't fire a bunch of people to just hire a bunch of people. And honestly, one of the big things to pop into my head after hearing all of these news, listening to all of these leaks, is more Fallout mobile games. There is still that Fallout Shelter Online. It's an Asian exclusive release, but does have expanded features over the...
Dude, what?
After hearing all of these news, listening to all of these leaks, is more Fallout mobile games. There is still that Fallout Shelter Online. It's an Asian exclusive release, but does have expanded features over the original. And back
Dude, this is the other thing. We have to get out of our bubble. We have to get out of our bubble. When Todd is looking at player numbers and stuff, and he's looking at mobile, he's like, oh, we have how many millions of players on mobile? Dude, this is the biggest Fallout game ever. Make more.
In 2018, Todd Howard said he wanted Bethesda Game Studios to always be working on a mobile game. That's a quick way to make some Fallout money right now.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's just the sort of thing I'm expecting here. I've seen quite a few fans cheer on this recent news. That Blackbird being canceled and more resources being allocated towards Fallout 5 is a great thing. And while I do totally understand that sentiment, just in general, a giant company cutting off original IPs to focus on money-making IPs doesn't often lead to better content. And one of the other rumors I want to mention, just the the end of this one is that all of this leaking is really just happening to soften some of the layoff news. Fallout is of course one of the biggest IPs at Xbox, and people are begging for more games here. Some fans think this is more of an orchestrated leak to raise public morale around Xbox, that yeah, there are layoffs, but hey, more Fallout's on the way, so...
No, I think it's just literally Xbox is in the news and Fallout will always generate clicks. And a lot of the discourse is kickstarting from a couple of these people that I think are largely pulling stuff out of their butts or might have legitimately some interesting news, but I think, you know, then expand on it a little bit too much to the point where it loses all meaning, which is kind of what happened with that Jez Corden bit, where it's like, I feel like we started, maybe there is like a little bit of truth to this, but then we're filling it in with a lot of nonsense, I feel.
Everything's okay. That doesn't necessarily make the information untrue, but who knows? It is interesting to me how at the all-hands-on internal meeting, there was no mention of Fallout apparently, but at the same time, multiple Fallout games are coming, but no developers have been mentioned anywhere. So there's a ton of new content on the horizon, but nobody knows who's making any of it right now. I don't know, I'm not super conspiratorial with this stuff, but it does kind of just feel like a bunch of hot air. Like even tomorrow, if we get 4 new Fallout games greenlit, each with $100 to $200 million budget, those games are all so far away that it's really hard to get excited about any of that. And it does make me wonder, why are we hearing about all these games right now? Those are my thoughts though. I'd love to hear from all of you in the comments below.
Very good video, Juicehead. Very good video. As always, guys, go subscribe to Juicehead. When you watch the clip, it'll be linked below. You should absolutely go check it out. But I mean, I think without a doubt, it's just, they certainly dropped the ball with the single player narrative fans, but I don't think they dropped the ball. Because again, I think they view Fallout 76 as the answer. I think they view it as the thing that's supposed to hold you over. As for everything else, you know, I don't buy the idea that, you know, certain projects were laid off or, you know, projects were shut down and employees were laid off to get money to then greenlight Fallout 5. Like, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't jive with anything else we've heard. It seems the layoffs were happening independent of everything else. They needed to happen. Satya laid down a command to lay off 4% of the workforce, and they said okay, and they have to find the people to fire. They chose to fire the people working on Blackbird because it was a really expensive live service game. They had just unionized as well, so it was going to only become more expensive as time went on, and it's a really risky project to work on right now. Microsoft is much more hesitant to pour a lot of money into live service stuff compared to or new live service stuff compared to Sony, you know, who's trying all sorts of new IP and spin-offs and stuff, whereas Microsoft tends to stick to the established stuff like Call of Duty that they already own and that's already successful. So I think I think most likely there probably is something in the works with Fallout. I just cannot fathom a world in which they would let it sit on ice this long, but I think they definitely dropped the ball not having something ready. I think we do get Fallout 3 remastered next year would be my guess. I think it'll be a similar thing as the Oblivion remake remaster that will drop probably next spring. They'll probably try to shadow drop it as well. But I think my big takeaway from talking about all this, I was not aware of all of the walking back that Todd did back here with regard to the timelines. I guess I had just totally spaced it that he had walked this back so many times, specifically trying to say, you know, it's going to happen sometime after that.
Here, when we talked, you said, yep, Fallout 5, I want to do that. That'll be next.
That was more of like a general, it will clearly be after Elder Scrolls 6 at some point.
I don't know why you say that unless it's not next. That to me sounds like he is padding the release window, saying it's coming in the future. I'm doing something else. I don't know how else to interpret it. Like, let's play the hypothetical. Fallout 5 is next. Everybody's been running with that idea, is excited about that, but he is going out of his way in this interview. He could just say, yeah, that's what I said, because it's next. You know, we'll do an official reveal when the time is right, but yeah, it's next. Yeah, obviously. He could say that, but instead he goes out of his way to say, when I said that, I meant it's coming after sometime in the future. That to me heavily suggests something else is coming before. That's just my interpretation of that. Okay, I feel like maybe I'm crazy, but that's what I'm guessing. Okay. Jacob, damn, Todd has no idea what's going on. They don't tell Todd when things are coming out. He's like, I haven't been in the studio in months. I have no idea what's going on over there. He's like, yeah, we're actually working on a new IP. It's a Teletubby RPG. It's going to be really cool. I mean, maybe planning for the obvious massive success of Starfield. Maybe. But like I said, I think my takeaway, this realization of horror in my heart that that Todd has historically liked to tide people over with live service offerings of his biggest IP, and they don't have a live service Starfield yet. They have a live service Elder Scrolls, ESO. They have a live service Fallout. They don't have a live service Starfield. That, it worries me. Please, Todd. Please, Todd, no. Please. Please, I beg of you, no. Dude, I'll be good either way. You know Luke's gonna be fine. Luke will have plenty to talk about, okay? Luke's gonna be just fine. But I don't want that as a fan of BGS. Like, that's how you know that I actually want the games to be good, okay? Because if I was just here for the content, I'd be like, yes, they're doing it. But dude, I'm just telling you, Todd, if you thought the flaming, like, Todd's sweet little lies, if you thought the mockery around Starfield and stuff was bad, I cannot imagine the sheer rage that will ignite if he gets on stage at the Xbox showcase in 2028 after Elder Scrolls 6 has been out for a year or two, and he says, we also have been working on one more thing. Our next big game, it's the biggest game we've ever made.
16 times the detail.
And he gets up there, he gives a little preface, you know.
We're aiming for a controversial 7 out of 10.
He gives a shout out to the people who made this possible.
Shout out to the chess club.
I don't remember what this one is.
But something's wrong with the game.
Oh, he describing Starfield. You all loved Starfield. It was so good.
But something's wrong with the game.
It's not multiplayer and live service, and we don't make enough money on it. Here is Starfield multiplayer. People will lose their minds. I will too. Yeah, the actual booze that would happen, dude. Can you imagine? I hope it's not true. I hope this is just a nightmare playing out of my head. I hope it's not. But Todd, let me tell you now, that's a bad idea. Literally, no one wants that. Okay? Like, literally, no one. I think, you know, if they like the idea of the spacefaring multiplayer, you know, adventure game, they are getting that with Star Citizen, and they didn't find it with Starfield. I think the people who are playing Starfield don't like the idea of the co-op live service version of it. That would just be Fallout 76, but in space, I guess. I mean, and No Man's Sky already will do everything better than you. Like, just don't do this, man. Don't do it. Don't do it. But I guess we'll see. Don't do it. Oh, what else would it be? Okay, just like real quick, what else would it be? If it's not Starfield 76, what else could it be? Like, would they do, like, they don't really have another option other than like a Fallout 3 remake, or which they've already done, or a Fallout 4 remake or something, a Skyrim remake right after Elder Scrolls. I don't know, man. Like, what else do you do? Fallout Shelter 2. I don't know, man. It's so weird. It's so weird. The whole thing is just a mess. I can't even think about it, because I'm like, I genuinely don't know what else they would do unless it's another new IP. But remember, Starfield, I think Starfield, the IP leaked like in 2013 or something. It leaked a decade before it was used. So I would imagine if there was another IP in the works, that there would be some leak about it. We would know about it, unless I guess nowadays it's, you know, now that they're owned, and they probably learned from that. They probably registered it through a shell company and buried it through 5 different lawyers and stuff like that. So they probably have some way around it. But Todd, please, no. It would be really funny, but don't do it. It would be so freaking funny. I would die laughing, but please don't do it. Oh my God. Anyway, if you're still watching the clip, the stream clip, let me know in the comments if you think that's possible. But oh man, I can't think about it. It'll make me too sad. Okay, end of segment. Boom. He took my thing. Red flag, red flag.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce Papa Smithy, the head honcho at FlyQuest, the president. That's the title, right? The president? Leaguepedia is not
President
incorrect?
and Chief Gaming Officer. I got two titles, President and Chief Gaming Officer. I guess the way to break that down, because it's like, what does President mean? What does Chief Gaming Officer mean? I would say Chief Gaming Officer is, we have multiple titles at FlyQuest, not just League of Legends, of course. We have the FGC and Street Fighter and Guilty Gear and the like. We have a women's Counter-Strike and Valorant team. We also have, of course, our League of Legends program. At times, that's been 1 to 3 different teams, depending on the year. Our Counter-Strike boys, the Aussie boys who are at IM Cologne. I was thinking about IM Cologne because that's where you and I met 10 years ago. Maybe we'll get into that at some point. Marvel Rivals as well. So we have multiple titles here. So ultimately, between the owners and kind of like the games, like what games should we get into? What's the like hypothesis there? What does success look like? Because obviously these esports are built differently, you know, franchise to open circuit and things like that. And the budgeting around that, that's probably the Chief Gaming Officer side of like, are we in the right titles? If not, what's the best way to get in, etc. And the president side is the public face, you know, like if someone needs to speak publicly for FlyQuest and, you know, can be read up on whether it's like the organization mission or the League of Legends strategy. Counter-Strike these days, been doing my best to be the public face of that too. Just like offering myself up, because turns out I used to talk on camera a lot for some years back then. Feels like a while ago now in a good way. So yeah, it's a confusing title, but I'll be the boss for now at least.
Okay, because you're like at your desk, the gold thing that says your title is the widest one you can order.
I'm not even though I've got 2 titles, I'm not really a titles guy. Like to be honest, I don't even have a LinkedIn, you know, like, and now I'm on the business side compared to like broadcast talent. So I was talent into general manager. That's like a competitive role, 100 Thieves. And then now it's much more of a business side role. You know, I'm not in any of the like player group chats where they gripe about things or anything like that. You know, that's what the general manager's for, Andrew Barton, who of course will come up a lot in our conversations today. So the player access part is less, which honestly sucks. I love working with young people. And now it's a lot more from time to time rather than like a direct part of my work product. But it's a good time over here. And obviously we've had some success that I imagine you'll want to dive into, and some hard times as well. So always happy to talk shop with you, Yamada.
All right, I'm excited to get into it. The first thing that came to my mind now, as you described the 2 titles in terms of how your day-to-day looks like I can't imagine running so many teams at the same time. How does that function? Like, how does a day of Papa Smithy look like?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, not all days are built alike. Like I was, you know, over in Vancouver with the League of Legends team for a couple weeks there. And when it's a big international event, that's like one of the few times I get my hands dirty and actually get involved. For example, when it's an LTA day, I will go to the studio every week because it's my home game. It's where my heart is. But I'll sit in the crowd. I actually won't go backstage. And the main reason I do that, and this is like an on-the-job learning from being, you know, first a GM into now a business executive for, I mean, we're closing in on 6 years since I stepped away from casting, which is crazy to think about, is that the best way to be able to manage a lot of titles is to hire smart people that you respect and give them control over those things. So Andrew Barton, for example, is someone who was a foil or like a competitor of mine back when I was a League of Legends GM. Andrew was GM of Evil Geniuses. I was GM of 100 Thieves from 2020 to 2022. We were kind of like both coming in as disruptors to the like Team Liquid, C9, TSM. CLG was kind of already a bit washed by them, but we were disruptors to, you know, the big names at that time, you know, with new money, trying to find a way to like break into what felt like a old boys club where if you didn't have Bjergsen or Jensen, how could you like compete at the top level? So both of us kind of pushed each other to be that new disruptor org, and both of us found success back to back. 2021, we won the LCS. EG, of course, famously won in 2022 spring. We broke the like Team Liquid. I think the only orgs that had ever won at that point were Team Liquid, C9, TSM, and COG. Those were the only 4 orgs that had won in LCS history, not even franchise history, right? Like LCS history. So that was we were competitors, and then the opportunity to pick him up came up at the end of 2023, and he's someone I work with really, really well. We love to talk about kind of the state of League of Legends and other esports, and kind of like I have a huge amount of respect for him. So the moment that I insert myself into, say, a backstage scenario for an LTA week, then suddenly there's the team manager, the coaching staff that the players have to buy into, the boss of the coaching staff, and then the boss of the boss. Like, who do you look at? Like, what does that mean? Like, I don't want to insert myself into that unless it's like for a reason. And that was something I learned pretty early on as a GM. Shout out to some performance coaches and people I worked with that kind of like helped me with this insight, is that if the boss is in the room, what is the goal of that? Like, what, you shouldn't be in the room to like get something for yourself. It should have some benefit to the program that you're trying to create here. Otherwise, why are you there? And so I try to like track that with the boss's boss, and that like if I'm backstage, we're at an international event, and international events move a little bit differently. And so that's like kind of how I think about it. So for the LTA, I'm very much just a passenger when it comes to like the player's eye line. And if I see something I don't like, or if I have a question, I'll go to my general manager and be like, hey, I saw this, what's going on there? Or like, I'm not happy with the way we're doing this. So like, here's a reality that's coming up in a couple of weeks. How should we solve this issue? And then other than that, I'm like having like, casual catch-ups with the players or coaching staff about, very, very low stakes things, like I don't want to insert myself as a decision maker, because if I do, then I'm underwriting or making it more complicated for Andrew. So that's how I'm involved in League, which obviously is the title where I have like the most knowledge and thus the most ability to mess things up. But yeah, have similar people to Andrew in other titles as well, and just want to set them up for success. And I'll educate myself to be the best question asker. But if I'm doing a good job hiring, the person who I've hired has the vision, is able to answer the questions, and puts us on a pathway towards success. In 2024, across all of our titles, we picked up championships or qualified for international events, or like reached the like year-end goals that we set at the end of 2023. And then, yeah, trying to make sense of that, trying to support marketing into getting sponsorship and other opportunities from that, is the sort of thing where some days you're like lost deep in an email chain, or having a difficult conversation with a partner or with owners and things like that. And other days you're just opening scrims and wondering why your team's running it down. Like there's no 2 days that are built the same, but ultimately I'm hoping, in general, I'm just like watching on as the people that I've hired are kind of like moving in smart directions for the company, and then trying to support them in the best way I can.
There's a very like clear red line, I think, in both of the positions that you had as GM and now in FlyQuest, is that at Center, the way I perceive it is your most important role is how you assess people. Because in the end, it's like you need to trust someone and give them a certain responsibility and an expectation. So your method of assessing people, how would you describe that?
Yeah, that's an astute point. And for me, it goes back a really long way. As a kid, I was very much the kid that asked a lot of questions. Dad, why is the sky blue kind of kid? That was me, the why questions, which inevitably ended with shut up, son kind of vibes. It just went too far. You know how it is. And I was always someone who wondered why the world moved the way it did, wondered why other people acted differently to how I would have acted. Like perspective taking was always something I was pretty good at. Not that I really understood that at the time, right? It was just like how my brain was wired. And then in high school, I got the opportunity to study psychology, and it kind of like, I didn't really know what psychology was, and kind of got a sense of that. And I'm like, oh, wow, like this is like the thing I want to do. I'd been the kid who, when I grow up, conversations, I kind of knew what I didn't want to do, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do until psychology was put on the docket as an option. So I studied that for 2 years in doing the International Baccalaureate, which some people will know that IB is like a educational like system you do in year 11 and 12. I did that, and studied for 5.5 years at university in Western Australia, and then became effectively a school psychologist or a school counselor, depending on what term you're used to. And that was my job for 2.5 years, was going around kind of like a country doctor. I was like a country school psychologist, where I would go around and talk to kids, and it was like primary school year 1 all the way up to year 12, which obviously is a massive range of age. And I would say the thing that I enjoyed the most in that job, and the thing I was best at, was rapport building. Because if you think about it, a school counselor job, like most people who are watching this would think about a school counselor from the perspective of going to one, like whether they've been told to go to the school counselor because they did something wrong, or because their parents thought they should, or something like that. And it's like nerve-wracking, right? Like, who's this person? Like, why are they asking these things, etc. From the perspective of the practitioner or the counselor themselves, your job is effectively, hey, you're coming to this school. In my case, it was like once a week. Some of the smaller schools, maybe once every 2 weeks. Here's a caseload of people we'd like you to see. And then one
You're probably wondering why we chose Godot when we have game engines like Unreal Engine and Unity. Well, it wasn't just some blind decision. It was deliberate and calculated. We actually had more experience with Unreal and Unity at the time we started this game. So why did we switch? Well, to truly understand, first I need to explain what our game is. Our game, Bacon Bad, is an open-world co-op game where you have an illness and are constantly slowly dying. To stay alive, you must pay medical bills before the illness takes over. So how do you make money? You bake illegal goods in the back of your physics-based RV, then drive to randomly generated cities to find customers while dodging the cops. It is available to wishlist on Steam, which is totally free and helps us out a ton. You'll find a link to our Steam page in the description below. Now let's start with one of the biggest reasons Bacon Bad is being made in Godot: open source. Godot is free and open source, and under MIT license. This means that the game we make is fully owned by us. We're not required to pay any engine fees or royalties, which is important to us because that means we can charge less for our game and still afford to eat. I mean, seriously, we got families to feed. Since we control the source, we aren't bound by any arbitrary updates, pricing changes, or policy shifts, like a certain engine in 2023. Another huge benefit to being open source is that we can easily modify the engine to fit our needs. We have already added native and project linking support for Blender, Substance Painter, 3D Coat, and Affinity Designer to make things that much quicker for us. Which brings us to our next point: engine customization. With Godot, we are able to tailor the engine to our specific needs. And being open source, there's a large community creating tools and resources for the engine. For example, we added a terrain system, asset placer, jolt physics, and more. We have also created tons of custom plugins that are specific to our game. One of these being a custom chunking plugin that allows us to select and edit chunks in our open world. Being so customizable also means we are able to add only what we need to avoid bloat in the engine. Lightweight, intuitive, and fast. After using Unreal Engine, Godot feels lightning fast to work with. The base engine is super lightweight. Let's say we're making a game that doesn't have terrain. Well, we don't have an unused terrain system built into the engine slowing us down. Another benefit of this is the small export packages, which is a must-have for us with how much content we are trying to pack into this game. We also found the engine super intuitive with its C node architecture. It is very modular and promotes composition and reuse. Not to mention Godot's built-in signal system provides an easy and effective way to communicate between scripts safely. With this architecture, it is easy to keep our project maintainable so that we can spend more time working on the game and less time fighting an unorganized mess.
We're not chasing photorealism, but rather a comic art style. And for that, Godot's shader tools are incredibly helpful. Writing shaders in Godot is extremely simple, the pipeline is fast and customizable, and it's easy to tweak the visuals without any crazy overhead. We believe that deferred rendering as an experiment has proven itself to be an overall failure. Because of this, we favor a forward plus rendering solution, which is the exact solution Godot offers. It allows us the best-in-class anti-aliasing without any messy and compute-heavy TAA, which is very common in Unreal Engine. Forward plus rendering pipelines are extremely customizable and legitimately allow you to create any possible effect in video games you can imagine. Whether it's a forward plus anti-aliasing solution or a deferred rendering particle effect, no matter what it is, you can implement it. A great example of this is the expanded G-buffer we made for our game in order to help us render the black outline that is all over our art style. This forward plus rendering solution also allows us to support a wide range of devices and allow them all to run extremely fast.
This is great and all, but of course we have encountered several shortcomings with Godot that we had to overcome. Our game is an open world with many large textures, so we quickly overloaded our VRAM without native texture streaming support. However, we were able to overcome this with a custom chunking system, where chunks far away from you are completely unloaded from memory. And since Godot is open source, we are able to work on our own texture streaming solution for our game. Another issue we had initially was the lack of help with specific problems we had due to the fact that just not many people were making a large-scale multiplayer open-world game in Godot with C# like we were. There was a lot of stuff that we just had to figure out on our own. Another adjustment was the lack of an entity component system. While there are some entity component system solutions for Godot, we decided to go without one, which took a little bit of adjustment. Every shortcoming is easy to overcome because the engine is open source. We can always add whatever we need to or fix whatever bugs come our way. So Godot might not be right for everyone, or for every game. But for us, it's the only option. We value owning our project and we feel we are equipped to tackle any challenges with the engine. We also value our game's quality, and while it may take more work from us, we believe that we have more control to deliver a better game with this engine. Every engine has its own ups and downs, so it's up to you to decide what is best for your game. Comment down below what engine you prefer and tell us why. We would love to hear about it. And if you choose Godot, then stick around and join our Discord, because we will be releasing tons of resources for the engine.
Alright, that's it.
What's up, fellow gamers? Freak here. I'm the design lead of Summoner's Rift Team's live pod, and I'm here to talk to you about a bug fix coming to a game near you, probably in patch 15.16, for Rumble and other champions. We're going to talk about the long-standing blue versus red side win rate disparity and at least a partial fix for why that exists. So a history of this bug, essentially, we've known for a long time that Rumble had a really large disparity in blue side versus red side win rate. There are plenty of theories why. One of the big ones was that Rumble R had such a long range that the camera angle was going to be important, right? Being able to see up and to the right so that you can cast your R and reliably see where you're supposed to aim it and have the enemies in range. And this is like not a bad theory. I think it's actually true for many champions where it is in fact easier to play some champions on blue side due to the camera angle. I think that is just kind of true. Now that said, Nexus Blitz came out at one point, several times in fact, and Nexus Blitz is a horizontal map where the camera is identical between teams. And it was noted that Rumble still had a blue-red win rate disparity even when the camera was functionally equivalent. And so that meant that we knew in the back of our heads somewhere that there was clearly something else going wrong that caused Rumble to have a different power level between blue and red team. It never got much farther than that. We didn't have any great theories, and seemingly the community didn't really either, but clearly we knew something was wrong. We also knew that just across League of Legends, the majority of champions have blue versus red win rate differences. And so the severity can often be papered over because, well, yeah, okay, maybe the map favors blue, all these things favor, who knows, but clearly it's a true phenomenon. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but if we don't know how to fix it, it's hard to do anything. So this got spawned, basically the reinvestigation got spawned by the community. Shout out everyone who kind of chimed in, was like, here's what we're seeing, here's some measured data, here's some theories about why this might be happening. This would not have been reinvigorated without the community, so y'all are wonderful. Thank you very much. Also want to note that a lot of the internet theories we saw, I for sure did not see a single theory that was like, oh, this is exactly what's happening. Some people had like partially the right answer. Were like, oh, some of the things you're saying is valuable information. Like, oh, this is true. This is demonstrably true. That's demonstrably true. Okay, that's a theory and you're wrong about it. So ultimately, yes, what team you're on did matter. The load order of the champions did matter, and being at damage over time did matter. Those are things to basically go off of, where I basically ran the investigation and we found what we were looking for. I eventually found what the problem was and how to get to it. And so first thing I did, because I saw that Rumble and Singed were the champions that were like getting picked up here, is like, these champions have issues. And I was like looking at it, I was like, oh wow, okay, I'm seeing some stuff here. Rumble had the biggest winner delta in the game, and like, well, Rumble Q and Singed Q are kind of similar abilities, so I'll like port over Singed Q's tech. That didn't really do anything, that didn't help. It's not actually a problem with how Rumble's doing the damage, like that's not one of the things. Singed actually functionally has identical problems. The bug report that the champs team Q I had generated was like, hey, the example case of dashing across Singed Q or like Rumble R really quickly has a blue-red disparity. And the things I was looking at was like, hey, but like Flame Spitter is doing weird things, or missing like damage takes in some cases, or damage is late or whatever. That seems to be something different. And so started diving in, and I said, hey, okay, who are some other like long-term dot champions where I can make some direct comparisons? And so I like made a custom game. I was running 8 clients, and I had 2 Rumbles running each team, a Singed, a Brand, and Malzahar in each team. I looked through all their scripting, and I'm like, okay, look, under the hood, the damage flow, the actual damage flow, like how you take damage on Singed Q and Brand Q and Malzahar, Brand passive and Malzahar E are basically all the same. And I retrofitted Rumble Q to be Singed Q. Again, they're all kind of the same, and it's like, okay, these are running basically the identical damage logic. And Brand is fine, Malzahar is fine, and Rumble and Singed are not. Okay, what is different here? And I was like looking at, so like Brand script, for example. Brand script says like, when you land a spell, put this buff on somebody, right? And the buff says every quarter second, damage me. The buff lasts 4 seconds. It says every quarter second, damage me. And at the end of the buff, if the buff timed out, like it wasn't removed by some kind of turbo cleanse, deal 1 more tick of damage, which makes good on how much damage has to be dealt by the buff itself. And blue side Brand, red side Brand, fighting a blue side or red side champion, I got 16 ticks almost every time. Once in a while you get 15 because the game sometimes won't count all the way to 16 based on a different problem that we're not solving here. There is a way to solve it with engineering fixes, but that's not what this thing is about. Malzahar is different. Malzahar also counts to 16, but he also specifically in the script counts to 16, like literally counts. And if he gets 16, he kills the buff. and functionally Malzahar like lasts long enough where you can always count to 16 and then like kill the buff on himself. But Brand does it by like doing slightly different things and then like adding buff at the very end. That works out fine. And Brand, you can't really have count because you can refresh the duration of Brand passive by landing another spell. And so again, you can find a way to solve that in script by like if a new buff gets added, you can like reset the count. Like there are ways to get around that, but again, not the point of this bug. But it's like, okay, so Brand and Malzahar work, and I do not have blue-red disparities, and their damage flow is the exact same as Singed and Rumble. Okay, what the hell? What's going on? Okay, it's not the damage flow then. Well, I'm kind of jumping around in the timeline here. I'm just kind of going through the notes I took here. This entire fix took about 2 days, combining investigation and finally building the fix and then making sure it's good and then other minor things there. There's actually a little more work to do, but we're basically 2 days in and we're pretty much ready to go. Various crimes were considered when it's like, hey, look, I actually now can reliably reproduce that, you know, red side Rumble just gets one less tick of Q. In basically all contexts, red side Rumble just does one less tick of damage with his Q. What if we just say red side Rumble Q lasts a quarter second longer? That's a crime. That's a terrible idea. But it's like, if there's nothing else, we could do that. There was a really anyway, basically dug around these scripts, right? Threw a whole bunch of debugs in, and I finally had an epiphany. And this was me using Singed. And I realized that if the Singed who's casting the spell is on blue team, so I basically had a debug, and it's what I put in and said, okay, give me the game time when this buff is added to the champion. And then every time you try to deal damage, and also every time you try to deal damage, count up by 1. And when the buff is over, give me the count. Like, did I count to 1? Did I count to 2? Did I count to 3? Did I not count at all? Am I still at 0? Whenever the buff ends. And similarly, I want you to, whenever you deal damage, get the time of the game again and do the difference and tell me how long the buff's been alive when you deal damage. And what I noticed was the epiphany, which is if you are blue team Singed, you deal damage at 0, 0.25, and 0.5. And if you're sitting in Poison Trail, 0, 0.25, 0.5, 0, 0.25, 0.5, over and over and over again. You would refresh it and it would be 0, etc. And if you are red team Singed, it was 0.25, 0.5, 0.25, 0.5, 0.25, 0.5. I'm like, oh, so if it's a red champion applying the buff to a blue champion, it doesn't tick at 0. It's the same buff. It's the same script. It's not like it's a different script if you're on blue or red team. But like, that's the thing. Blue team is getting damage at 0 somehow, and red team isn't. And then I finally realized I know what the problem is. I know what the underlying issue is here. And so it's a order of events problem, essentially. So the interface that we use as designers when using scripting tools is there's an event called buff on or item on or char on. Basically says the script runs on a buff or an item or a character. Update actions. Update actions runs roughly every quarter second. Update actions is also, incidentally, though this is not the cause of the bug, the same time at which the game will clean up buffs on average. If you're not picky about how long the buff lasts, it will always last until the next update actions and then clean itself up. And that's where the bug is. Because what seems to happen, and I'm not an engineer, I'm not a tech designer, so I haven't looked at the game's code, but this seems to completely line up with all possible cases, including the fact, if I go back one slide, the Champs QA guy came back to me. He's been working with like one of the Champs engineers, and I'm over here on SRT like doing the design work. And so like I've talked with a lot of people here. Like there's a lot of people who are like responsible for some of the help here, but we're like the ones that are doing all the actual development work on it. And they're like, hey, so we did like some more investigations. Like Corky W and Shyvana RE don't have this bug, and I'm like, okay, that's weird. So I like load up Corky, because at this point I've realized that like, oh, it's a case of areas on the ground or areas on the map that persistently reapply a debuff of what's going on here. And so when they brought Shyvana RE and Corky W, I'm like, wait, Corky W doesn't have this bug? What's going on? And I throw in the Corky debugs, and Corky, whether you're blue or red side, doesn't count to 0. It's always 0.25 and 0.5. And I was like, guys, I don't know what it is. I'll investigate more on my own, but like, that's news to me. I'll look into it. Maybe there's something I don't know. And then I realized, nope, I'm still right. Corky W uses minions. Turns out if you use minions, there's no bug. But Rumble and Singed don't use minions. And so they're prone to the bug, and Corky W doesn't. And like, oh, cool. I got new information, and it matched my understanding of the world. Okay, I'm like increasingly sure I'm right. So it comes down to the update actions stack ordering is how I'm going to describe this. So imagine every character in the game is in a stack. I'm just going to say there's 5 champions right now, or 5 units total, right? There's the blue team champs, there's the red team champs, and there's minions, okay? So here's how it works if you're a blue champ, right? And it goes in order, right? So I'm singed, right? And I have singed Q on, and so the script that handles this, which is Poison Trail Applicator, says on update actions, look in an area around everywhere there's a Poison Trail cloud. Right, and so like Singed has 7 stacks of this buff on him at all points in time, and it's, you know, Cloud A is like, you know, like stack 1 is referencing the location Cloud A, stack 2 is referencing the location of Cloud B, stack 3 is referencing the location of Cloud C, etc. And so the buff itself runs through all the logic. Each stacker runs its logic. Each buff runs the logic and says, okay, if someone is in an area around location A, debuff them with Poison Trail damage. Very simple. And Rumble does the same thing, basically. Rumble, close enough. Rumble's close enough, Rumble R's close enough, whatever. Corky W is kind of close enough as well. So what happens is it runs the logic, right? It goes, okay, let's go run all of Singe's buff on the blue team. And it goes, okay, well, update actions. Look for units around these circles, and if they're in one of these circles, give them the debuff. And it goes, cool, they got the debuff. And then in the same frame, it goes down, it goes, who's next? Singe's jungler, then Singe's mid laner, then his, you know, AD carry, then his support, and then we go to the Alawi top laner. And it's all the same server frame. We go, hey Alawi, what are your buffs? And Alawi goes, well, I've got this Poison Trail damage debuff on me. And it goes, that's nice, what's the update action say? It says take damage. Okay, you're gonna take damage. And then a quarter second later, the game goes, all right, so Singe Q, what's going on? And Singe Q goes, well, if they've got a lockout buff on them, don't do anything. Okay, fine. She has a lockout buff on her. We go to Alawi. She says, I'm going to take damage. Okay, cool. Quarter second later, Singe Q says, hey, if they have a lockout buff on her, don't apply any new debuffs. Okay, so I won't. The lockout buff lasts half a second. Alawi goes, hey, what's going on in your buffs? And it goes, well, my lockout buff has been up for half a second now. I should get rid of that. Also, I have this other buff that says take damage. So I take damage. And then another quarter second comes around, and Singe Q goes, hey, there's Alawi in a circle here, and she has no lockout buff. I'm going to debuff her again. Okay. And then we go to Alawi, and Alawi says, hey, I've got a debuff on me. I should take damage. Cool. That cycle runs every quarter second. Now, what if your red team singed? Well, so let's say Singe is on red and Alawi's on blue. Okay, we got on the list. Hey, Alawi, what's going on? Nothing, I have no buffs. Okay, cool. Hey, Singe, what's going on? Alawi's in my circle, give her a debuff. Okay. Quarter second later, Alawi's like, hey, I've got a debuff on me. I should take damage. Okay. And there you go. And that replicates. Now, what's funny is like 10, 12 years ago, Singe Q was refactored to not be a bunch of minions. It was made to be a bunch of stacks of a buff on Singed and Singed reference locations. When Singed Q was minions are at the bottom of the order, so Alawi would be like, nothing's happening. And the Singed would go, nothing's happening. And then the minion that Singed spawned 2 seconds ago would be like, hey, Alawi's in my circle, give her a debuff. Okay. And a quarter second later, hey, Alawi, what's up? I'm debuffed, give me damage. Okay. And so that's why, for example, Corky W is minions. And so Corky W doesn't have a problem. The damage won't tick for a full quarter second because you have to go to the next stack. You have to go through the next update actions loop. But there is a fundamental blue-red disparity here, where if you're blue, it handles your application, then it handles the debuff in the same frame. If you're red, it's too late. Wait for the next update actions tick, do it again. And so you're always a quarter second late for all those champions. For anyone who doesn't use minions and uses a stack of update actions triggers. So again, we go back to Brand and Malzahar as examples. Those aren't waiting for update actions to apply the debuff. They're casting a spell on you. I execute on the target at a random point in time, which is basically by certainty not in between the update actions loop between blue champs and red champs. That's basically impossible. I'm sure it's maybe happened. I actually don't even know how the engine would handle that. I don't know if it would like wait until the event is over anyway. Like it might be literally impossible for there to be a blue-red disparity there. I actually don't know. Again, I'm not an engineer. But it's like Brand doesn't have this problem because Brand just puts the buff on you at a random point in time. Liandry's doesn't have the problem because if I like cast Annie Q and it hits you at some random point in time. And that damage says immediately apply a debuff. So there's no blue-red problems for like dots in general. It's specifically an update actions call that puts a debuff that says do an update actions call. In that case, you get skipped because it's too late and you're a quarter second behind. Now, what's funny is Singed, Rumble Q, and Rumble R all had reasons why they could be papered over in some cases, where it wasn't quite as bad. So I talked about Singed a little bit here, but the way Singed Q works is it puts on a half-second lockup buff on you. It has no logic on it, just exists. And what it means is because Poison Trail can be stacked on itself, you can have like 7 zones on top of each other, it would mean that in a given frame, you'd get the same buff added to you 7 times, and yes, it would override each other, but like that's incredibly non-performant to tell a stack of minions every quarter second to apply 7 buffs on each other, delete and re-add a buff 7 times, and Singed Q is on all the time, so it would be really, really constant. So I totally understand why you'd want some kind of way to not just iterate 7 buffs on a unit for literally no reason. But because the Singed Q was a half-second lockout, and it would be willing to wait until the next update actions loop, what happened was, right, you're blue Alawi, I'm red Singed, I debuff you, yes, my damage comes late, 0.25 seconds, it comes again, 0.5 seconds, you've taken 2 ticks of damage, and your poison is also half second gone, by the way, right? It's a 2.1 second duration, it's now 1.6. But as Alawi, you're like, hey, it's been 0.5 seconds, my debuff, my lockout's gone. And then right next in line is Singed going, no lockout, debuffed. And you refresh the duration back to 2.1. And so red side Singed slightly papered this over. You switch it around, right? Imagine your blue side Singed, and your blue side Singed, and here's red side Alawi. Blue side Singed says, I'm going to debuff you. Alawi goes, okay, takes damage right away. Obviously, again, power positive for blue. And then we go 0.25 seconds, and Singed goes, are you locked out? Yep. Okay, no big deal. We go to Alawi, she takes damage. Okay, we go to 0.5 seconds. Singed goes, are you locked out? She goes, yep. And then we get to her, and she goes, all right, my buff's gone. And Singed has to wait until 0.75 seconds to put the debuff back on. So blue side Singed, you can actually look at this on live right now. Go sit in Poison Trail as red versus blue in multiplayer practice tool or whatever, or custom game or whatever it is, and you'll note that one team Singed restarts the debuff timer more quickly than the other. But on the other side, if you're fast with it, you use flash, whatever, you'll notice that one side Singed will get 1 more tick of damage than the other if you leave the circle right away. You've got a half-second window to leave the circle on time before you refresh the duration, and you will always get 1 less tick of damage, just straight up. So that was like slightly papered over because there would be plenty of cases where red team would get the extra refresh, and that might even give 2 more ticks of damage, right? If you get the refresh, that's an extra half second or more of duration that blue might not have gotten because the Poison Trail timed out in time, right? You walked in late or it got cast or whatever it is, right? Rumble Q also had this, by the way. Rumble Q papered over for a different reason. The way Rumble Q is coded right now on live is it tries to be damage over time while not being a damage over time. So the damage logic says, am I untargetable? If so, stop. It says, am I more than 700 units away from Rumble? If so, stop. Is Rumble Q still active? If it's not, stop. Technically, the logic in the reverse of that, it's if you keep going, and if, not, there's just no logic. But it means that, what do we talk about with Singed? Well, red team Rumble deals damage to a blue side champ. Again, blue side champ, nothing happens. Debuff is applied. Wait a quarter second. Blue team takes damage. But for the last tick, blue team says, hey, does Rumble still have his Q on? Rumble goes, yep. Blue team takes damage. We then go later on to the same frame, and Rumble goes, oh, my Q's over. I should end. And so you would actually still get 12 ticks of damage for both Rumbles, unlike the Singed case, where if you jumped in and jumped out, you would just be 1 tick off. So Rumble Q happened to paper over this by having an exit condition on Rumble Q and having a conditional damage on the end on the burn. Just worked out that way.
Square collapsed after Hironobu Sakaguchi left the company, said Final Fantasy composer Nobuo Uematsu, adding that the situation at Square was awful after he quit. Yeah, not great. Final Fantasy series creator Sakaguchi joined Uematsu on the podcast Nobio to Ishune earlier this month, where they discuss their time together at Square working on the series in the 80s and the 90s. God, I wish I spoke Japanese so I could listen to that. That's fantastic. Sakaguchi resigned in 2001 before officially leaving Square in 2003, along with other key members of the company, ahead of its merger with rival Enix that same year. Yeah, and we all know why that happened, sadly, which is, while Sakaguchi is a genius who is basically the mastermind behind the best years of Final Fantasy, he also went all into Final Fantasy Spirits Within, which is one of the most puzzling movies out there. For those of you who don't know, Final Fantasy Spirits Within is a generic, forgettable, depressing science fiction movie that for some reason is called Final Fantasy. It has nothing to do with Final Fantasy at all. There's one character called Sid, spelt with an S, not a C. It was the first time that Final Fantasy fans felt betrayed by Square. It was the first time that something that didn't feel like Final Fantasy at all had the Final Fantasy name slapped onto it to sell more tickets. And as much as I love Sakaguchi, I don't know what he was thinking when he did this, but you know what, man, we're human. We can't get it. Not everything can be a slam dunk. It's fine. You know, he's done more than enough bloody great work to make up for this. But the sad thing is, the devastating effects of this film can still be felt today, because this bankrupted Squaresoft got Sakaguchi out of the company, who was, you know, the guy who was able to rein in all these deranged geniuses like Nomura and all that. It's what I think caused the merger with Enix, and after Square merged with Enix, that's when it all went to shit. So yeah, Spirits Within showed us what modern FF was about to become. A bunch of skinwalker games wearing FF suits. A bunch of games that do not feel or play like Final Fantasy, and they certainly don't hit in the same way, but they call themselves Final Fantasy. Square collapsed after Sakaguchi left, said Uematsu on the podcast, thanks to Automaton. To put it simply, he's the big boss. Always has been, always will be. Yeah, I mean, I can just totally see that. Like, look at Nomura under Sakaguchi. And then look at Nomura without Sakaguchi. These seem like two completely different creatives at this point. Yeah. But with all due respect to Nomura, the guy is a fucking genius character designer, and we all know that. We all know that. Uematsu describes Square in its formative years as more of like a club of university students than a serious company. That makes me sad to read that, because yeah, you can just tell that, like, you know, they're a bunch of young, talented professionals full of ambition and optimism, and they aren't already famous yet. They aren't already too successful. They can't afford to rest on their laurels. They have to follow the rules of good craftsmanship and good writing. Otherwise, their games aren't going to sell. Unlike today, when they can shovel out any old mid-slop, any old mixed bag, and a deranged, crazed section of the fan base will hail it like it's the Mona Lisa in the Sistine Chapel of gaming. We didn't even have a proper corporate organization, yet everyone listened to him. It's the kind of quality you have to be born with. That's really interesting, because some people are natural leaders. Some people are naturally born with this quality. Uematsu called Sakaguchi a leader. He may have been bossy and strict, but he was able to attract the people around him. Yeah, it's like, I've had teachers like this in school who the way they lead, they don't even need to threaten with punishment or anything. You just want to do your best work for them because you respect them. You don't want to disappoint them. Uematsu continued. Maybe Sakaguchi isn't aware of this, but the situation at Square was awful after he quit. He left and the organization suddenly collapsed. I thought to myself, fuck, I'm Clive, and I should get away from here. Yeah, well, he's not wrong. Earlier this year, Sakaguchi discussed with Eurogamer how his most recent game, Fantasian, is fueled by nostalgia for his past work. Okay, yeah, respect for that, man. Respect for that intention. Though there have been successes in the Final Fantasy series since Sakaguchi's departure, namely 14, the series has struggled to match the 90s golden era. Yeah, well, it hasn't. It's done. The golden age of Final Fantasy, the absolute best run that it had, was Final Fantasy IV to Final Fantasy X, 1991 to 2001, which is crazy that it's exactly 10 years. But 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They are all classics. They're not always perfect. 8 is quite an interest. 8 is an interesting mixed bag where it has probably the biggest flaws out of all those games, but its strengths are so strong in terms of visuals and music, it just kind of gets away with it. 10 is interesting because it's the transition game where it's fun in a way a lot of the old games were, but 10 also gives you glimpses for how soy and how Kingdom Hearts everything is about to get. So it's kind of like a birth of a modern age one. But when you see 10-2, it's like, oh, okay, the series is done. Yeah, everything's about to go to shit. So, as for Uematsu, he left Square Enix in 2004, but has since frequently composed pieces for the FF series. Last year, he confirmed he'd be returning for Part 3 of FF7 Remake Trilogy with a main theme. All right, okay. As such, he's not retiring from video game music, as some had feared, but admitted that he is going to cut back on video game music because the time commitment would be too long. There is one last thing I want to say on this. The fact that he says Square collapsed and the situation at Square was awful after he left, they lost their big boss, like behind the scenes just all fell apart. I mean, it really explains why Final Fantasy games just became such a mixed bag of mid-slop afterwards. Like, anyone who says, oh no, it was always about change. It's like, nah, this is an excuse invented to cope with the harsh reality of what FF became. It's bullshit, man. Like, if you look at Final Fantasy, say, 1 to 10, you can see a clear progression along the way. Yes, the characters are different. Yes, the stories are different. Yes, this, and that. It's always like innovations upon an existing formula. But that's different from completely throwing that winning formula out the window and just hitting the randomizer button on every single time you make a new FF game. It's ridiculous. This whole Final Fantasy is about change. Sorry, this whole Final Fantasy has always been about change thing. It's a bullshit argument. And it just falls apart the second you apply it to any other game series. Like, Metal Gear Solid, man. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are all pretty fucking... You can make the argument that they're all about change as well. They're always very different from each other, and yet they're all clearly part of the same series. How about this? If you want to say that Final Fantasy has always been about change, it's like, yes, you're right. It changed from being among the best games in the world to not the worst games in the world. That's what it changed into.
First, some exciting news from the world of gender politics, where Democrats continue to agonize over their terrible showing with men, particularly young men. Extraordinary data from Pew Research this week found that from 2023 to 2025, men between the ages of 18 and 29 swung 44 points. That's massive to say that they identify now with Republicans. While guys aged 30 to 49, a little bit older, that age group saw a 15-point swing to the Republicans. So guess what the left is now doing to try and win men back? Oh, you're going to love this. They're running a full-court press to convince everyone that if you like this woman, that if you find her attractive, this woman, Sydney Sweeney, and the American Eagle Jeans campaign she is currently starring in, well, you might be a fascist or a racist or a Nazi or something because, well, come on, she's white and good looking. And the ad's tagline about having good genes, well, it's like good genes, get it? Check this out.
Good genes passed on to offspring? That American Eagle ad with Sydney Sweeney is literally overt eugenics.
And TikTok is absolutely flooded with this sort of nonsense.
Should we be surprised that a company whose name is literally American Eagle is making fascist propaganda like this?
probably not, but it's still really shocking. Like, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman is talking about her good genes.
Yes, it's fascist propaganda, but you know what? It's not just internet weirdos. Mainstream breakfast program in the U.S., Good Morning America, has also bought into this lunacy.
Yeah, the ads are for American Eagle, and the tagline is, Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Now, in one ad, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed actress talks about genes as in DNA being passed down from her parents.
The play on words is being compared to Nazi propaganda with racial undertones.
The pun, good genes, activates troubling historical associations for this country.
Troubling historical associations. Meanwhile, the once respected journal The Atlantic, left-wing but very smart, has suggested that quote-unquote conservative commentators are pushing the idea that, quote, Americans should be free to love boobs, unquote. Again, I don't know why young men aren't signing up to be Democrats in droves with that sort of logic, but if you ask me, it's not hard to see really what's going on here. This is all part of a rebellion. This ad campaign is a rebellion against what might be called the Great Awakening that started with Barack Obama's presidency and lasted until the end of the Biden era. It was the push by the left to infect every sphere of life with woke politics while also trying to rewire society and even our brains, with part of that push being an assault on beauty itself, which is why the left finds Sydney Sweeney so threatening. This is why we see headlines from MSNBC saying the ad campaign is about a return to whiteness. No, I'm sorry, MSNBC, it's about a return to normality, where someone good-looking can be good-looking and revel in it, and the rest of us can admire her without being told off for being creepy or weird. Now, the politics of all of this, of course, are going to wind up being a disaster for the left and will continue to be. Let me just quote here the great internet sage Dave Burge, a.k.a. Iowa Hawk, who wrote, I'm neither a Nazi nor a marketing expert, but gotta say that screaming that an attractive young woman in a blue jeans advertisement is Nazi-coded is probably the worst anti-Nazi campaign ever devised.
Justin Bieber is falling apart, and the industry that built him is once again profiting off of his downfall. He's been posting manic videos on his Instagram, using face-distorting filters and just rambling incoherently about religion, identity, and sacrifice. Most of his fortune, reportedly over $500 million earned in his career, is being ripped away from him, and nothing seems to make sense. But once you look behind the surface, you realize that Justin's decline isn't an accident. It's been manufactured behind the scenes since he was just 13 years old. And in July 2025, as Bieber released his first album in 4 years, a surprise project called Swag, the same machine that created him is now feeding off of his destruction. Because in this industry, your suffering keeps the lights on. But to understand what's really happening to Justin right now, we need to go back to the beginning, to truly understand how a 13-year-old boy busking on the streets of Ontario became one of the most exploited figures in modern entertainment, who serves as a warning to anyone in the music industry, and how the same people who promised to protect him ultimately became his predators. It's 2008, and a charming-looking 13-year-old with a bowl cut is singing Neo's So Sick on the steps of the Avon Theatre in Stratford, Ontario. His mother films him on a cheap camera and uploads it to YouTube so his grandmother can watch. And within weeks, that innocent video attracts the attention of Scooter Braun, a 27-year-old music executive hunting for the next big thing. Braun flies Justin and his single mother to Atlanta, and the pitch is very seductive: fame, fortune, and the chance to live his dreams. There, Justin meets Usher, one of the biggest guys in the industry in that time, so it doesn't take long for record contracts to be signed. Photo ops are arranged, and the narrative is perfect: the small-town Canadian boy that makes it big in America. The early years seemed to just be magical for Bieber and his family at the time. Baby became one of the most watched videos in YouTube history. His concerts sold out in minutes, and merchandise flew off the shelves. But behind the scenes, this 14-year-old is already starting to lose control of their life. His first kiss became a media event. His voice cracking is turned into content discussed by talk show hosts. His awkward teenage years are broadcast globally for profit, like something straight out of The Truman Show, where everything in his life is designed around people watching him from afar. Ellen DeGeneres, America's supposed sweetheart at the time, repeatedly ambushed the teenage Justin with embarrassing content during interviews. She's suddenly displaying photos designed to humiliate him, then laugh when he looks uncomfortable. Then he calls her out on this and she brushes it off as just harmless fun. This was psychological manipulation disguised as entertainment. Even more disturbing was actress Jenny McCarthy's behavior at award shows, as she multiple times attempts to kiss the teenage Justin inappropriately, including once trying to kiss his neck while he was accepting an award. He's visibly disgusted but forced to maintain composure. Even people like James Corden can't stop touching him. But perhaps the most sinister figure in Justin's early years was Diddy. The footage of their interactions, viewed through the lens of what we now know about Diddy, is genuinely disturbing. In one now famous, infamous video, Diddy promises 15-year-old Justin a Lamborghini when he turns 16 and offers him a house when he's 18. These weren't just casual offers, they're classic grooming behavior using expensive gifts to create obligations to him, a pattern he's repeated with numerous celebrities, though perhaps none as young and as vulnerable as Justin, that we know of. Even more troubling is the footage where Diddy openly says that Justin should know better than to talk about what happens at his place.
And he knows better than to be talking about the things that he does with Big Brother Puff on national television.
Diddy had custody of a 15-year-old Justin for 48 hours. Just let that sink in. An adult man with a documented history of very inappropriate behavior given unsupervised access to a child star for 2 full days. There's also strange footage that appears to show Diddy checking Justin for a wire as if the teenager might be recording their conversations. Given what we now know about Diddy's alleged crimes today and all the freak-off parties and abuse of young artists, those 48 hours might take on a much darker significance. You can actually see the nervousness in Bieber's face then, and that's only grown into a much deeper, more stirring expression that makes you wonder what he's been subjected to behind closed doors. All of this is happening while he never gets to live a normal childhood life. Everyone around him is always screaming. People hate him everywhere, paparazzi's always following him. His entire life from his earliest memories has always been watched and recorded, all for other people as entertainment. Anytime he's annoyed, that's good content. Anytime he feels awkward or insecure as a young teenager, is exposed to the entire world. But actually the most shocking thing with Justin and other child stars who've fallen into similar fates is what's happening in plain sight, and the roles of those close to them who seem to fail them. Throughout this period, manager Scooter Braun positioned himself as Justin's guardian. The narrative was perfect for the media. A wise older brother guides a talented kid through the danger of fame. They were inseparable. Braun made himself essential to every aspect of Justin's career and personal life, but this wasn't really protection. It isolated Bieber and made him dependent on Scooter and by extension the parasitic entertainment industry. He controlled Justin's schedule, his finances, his relationships, and his career decisions, his entire life. He positioned himself as the only person Justin could possibly trust in this dangerous industry, and he was the one who would dictate Justin's life forever. In Justin's case, he just didn't realize what was happening until it was almost too late. The spark in his eyes from those early YouTube videos gradually dimmed with each passing year of this, replaced by a hollow stare that spoke of someone who's been emptied out. So fast forward to 2020 and Justin Bieber's career was in full swing and had generated between $500 to $1 billion during his career. His concerts always sold out stadiums. His albums would always go platinum. His merchandise was a global phenomenon. By any reasonable measure, he should have been set for life. It was only up from here, right? This is what people imagine when they think of living the dream. He had ultimate success, all the connections you could possibly ever want, all the money you could ever want, all the fame you could ever want, even the looks you would want. Justin quite literally had everything you could wish for. But in reality, he had almost nothing, and Justin's financial situation was falling apart behind the scenes. So how does someone earn $1 billion and end up financially desperate? It may seem impossible, but it's a well-trodden path for young people in the entertainment industry, a slippery slope that you struggle to get off of. It's a classic music industry debt trap that catches many young successful artists. Those with the biggest, purest dreams are some of the easiest targets. Here's how it works. Record labels and management companies at the top of the industry give artists advances, upfront payments that look like free money but are actually loans against future earnings. The catch is that these advances are recoupable, meaning they could just be paid back through the artist's share of royalties, which typically range from 10 to 16% of total sales. But it gets worse through something called cross-collateralization. That means if one album flops, the debt carries over onto the next project. All of Justin's future earnings from any source the contract covers get used to pay off old debts, so a failed album in 2015 could still be eating into profits from a hit album in 2020. Now, obviously Justin wasn't exactly broke here in the traditional sense. His current net worth is still estimated to be around $200 to $300 million, but the vast majority was illiquid, and he faced a severe cash flow crisis in 2022, as sources claim that he was on the verge of financial collapse and was so cash poor that he had to borrow a friend's credit card to play golf. But before we continue, I want to tell you about Odoo. Odoo is an all-in-one management software that provides entrepreneurs with a range of applications to simplify the day-to-day management of their business, including invoicing, accounting, project management, inventory, website creation, and so much more. For me, one of their most useful applications is their invoicing app, which, for anyone who's a freelancer or business owner, is a huge time saver. As with this, you can create and manage your invoices in seconds, and it's really just as simple as identifying your customer, adding the products and services to the invoices, specifying the billing terms, and then sending the invoice over an email. Or if you want to track your payments, you can redirect your customers to a portal with Odoo, where they can pay using the preferred payment methods like Stripe or PayPal. This invoicing application is a great way to streamline your business and efficiently manage invoicing processes and automate a key part of business. And Odoo grows with you, allowing you to add additional apps as your business expands and your needs evolve. Best of all is that you can have this app for free with Odoo's first app offer, which is free for life and includes unlimited hosting and support. Or if you want to grow with Odoo and have access to all of their applications, it starts at €19.90 a month. So check them out today by using the link in the description below. At this time, Justin was deep into his Justice World Tour, a massive 131-day global expedition that was supposed to be his triumphant return after a previous health struggle, when in June 2022 he posted a video that shocked the world. Half of his face was paralyzed.
As you can see, this eye is not blinking. I can't smile on this side of my face. This nostril will not move. So there's full paralysis in this side of my face.
He'd been diagnosed with Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, a rare neurological condition that left him unable to blink in one eye or move half his mouth. He said his lifestyle was starting to take a huge toll on his health. Any reasonable management team would immediately have cancelled the tour and prioritised their artist's health, but allegedly his team continued to push him to perform. When Justin finally couldn't continue, the financial implications were catastrophic. He owed the concert promoter $26 million from a $40 million advance. Instead of helping his longtime client find a solution, it's alleged that Braun's company stepped in with what appeared to be a generous offer. They would cover the $26 million in debt to AEG, and allowed Justin to pay them back over 10 years. On the surface, it looked like Braun was saving Justin, but in reality he might have been transferring Justin's debt from one master to another, himself, the guy who controlled his entire life. And when Justin only made one payment before stopping, the debt just kept on growing, and then the hole starts to get deeper and deeper, and by 2023, Justin's business manager Lo Taylor conducted a financial review and made a shocking discovery. Braun had allegedly been overpaid $26 million in commissions over the years. Allegations turned to theft, and it also turned out that Taylor herself might not also be trustworthy. Firstly, although referred to as an accountant, she's actually apparently not qualified as one.
She was playing the role of business manager, which is a financial role, even though Lou Taylor had no financial background. She was not even an accountant.
She kicks off her career managing Britney Spears' sister, then acting as a spokesperson for the Spears family. Lou then ended up also managing Britney Spears and has taken all the credit for establishing Britney's conservatorship. And in classic Hollywood style, she was also later accused of having an affair with Britney's father, Jamie. It's a typical story of control and greed in Hollywood. Braun's company then eventually responded to Taylor by conducting their own internal audit, which concluded that Justin actually owed Braun an additional $1 million in unpaid commissions. Justin's team called this audit corrupt. The conflict escalated until they got one of the world's most respected accounting firms to conduct an independent investigation. After 6 months of forensic analysis, PwC delivered their verdict in April 2025. Justin owed Scooter Braun $8.8 million in unpaid commissions. Let that sink in. After earning close to $1 billion after years of sold-out tours and platinum albums, Justin Bieber was revealed to apparently be millions in debt to his own manager. The audit was so damning that Justin's team didn't even dispute the findings. As Bieber's finances were pulled apart in a very public way, the psychological damage was beginning to become impossible to ignore. By 2024, this revealed a man in deep crisis. The media put Bieber's downfall under the microscope, and he was starting to crack, just like anyone would in this Truman Show reality. Quote, "People told me my whole life, well, Justin, you deserve that, and I personally have always felt unworthy," he posted on social media. "Like I was a fraud, like when people told me I deserved something, it made me feel sneaky, like damn, if they only knew my thoughts. How judgmental I am, how selfish I really am." This was a textbook trauma response from someone who's been manipulated his whole life. The industry had convinced him that his success was undeserved, that he was lucky to have people helping him, and that questioning their methods made him ungrateful, that his entire life was owed to them. Back in December 2022, when the debts were mounting and the cash flow problems spiraled out of control, Justin made a decision that would haunt him forever. He sold his entire 291 song catalog to Hypnosis Songs Capital for $200 million. At 28 years old, Justin became the youngest major artist to ever sell their entire catalog, essentially trading his life's work for a bailout from debts that the industry system itself had created. A year later, he then fired Scooter Braun, but had been holding meetings for a new potential manager for about 3 years already. It's reported that Haley, Justin's wife, led that decision. However, Braun, who also had Ariana Grande as a client, lost her business too. Within the last year, Braun also lost Demi Lovato and a bunch of other pending losses, all deciding they either want to go in different directions or they just outgrew him as a manager. Taylor Swift accused him of profiting from her distress when he acquired her music catalog, stating "This is my worst case scenario," and describing it as someone who tried to dismantle her music legacy, now owning her entire life's work. It lends to where there is smoke, there's fire. Whatever the reason, Scooter has since retired. Throughout this financial crisis, Justin's relationship with Haley became another target for industry exploitation. Their 2018 marriage was supposed to provide stability, but instead it became another source of content and speculation. Every public appearance was analyzed for signs of trouble. Every social media interaction was dissected. When they looked happy, it was used to sell the narrative of a perfect couple. When they looked strained, it fueled divorce rumors that generated clicks and engagement. Then they welcomed their son Jack Blues in August 2024, but their parenthood became another magnet for controversy. On Justin's first Father's Day, he posted that his fatherhood is not to be with Haley later posting "Father Day sucks ass." This was later removed, but the damage was done. The breaking point then came in June 2025 outside a Malibu restaurant. Justin, now a father trying to protect his family's privacy, confronted paparazzi who was stalking them.
Not me today, bro.
Happy Father's
no,
Day.
Stop
Happy
that.
Father's Day.
Stop. I'm a real dad with a real family. And you're really in front of my face. No. No. We're going to set boundaries here today with all of you today. You're not getting it. It's not clocking to you. It's not clocking to you that I'm standing on business, is it?
His desperation was genuine, and his plea for basic human dignity was felt by millions, but within hours, it just became another viral meme. A father's desperate attempt to protect his family turned into another punchline, one of many throughout his entire career since childhood. Hollywood is so relentless, and unfortunately no one gets a pass. It doesn't matter if they're new parents or not, or if they're stars. If anything, a shot of their new family addition is more of an incentive to invade their privacy to get well paid. And you cannot reason with Hollywood's paparazzi hellhounds. So by early 2025, the damage was accumulating as Justin started to look more and more messed up in public appearances. His Instagram posts became increasingly erratic and concerning. In one series of deleted videos, he used face-distorting filters and spoke in a high-pitched voice, claiming he'd spent part of his childhood in Alaska and making rambling religious references.
Alaska living. I mean, I caught a couple. I was over there, I was fishing on the dock. I was, it must have been in 17, 18, 19, and when I tell you I reeled them in, Bobby, I reeled them in. I don't mean to get in between.
His body language showed distress, with constant fidgeting, avoiding eye contact, and disconnection from reality that revealed either some serious mental health struggles or just substance issues. In more lucid moments, his posts were just heartbreaking, stating he was broken and implying it was all his fault. Meanwhile, his physical appearance certainly indicates drug use or just bad health, despite his team denying these allegations and saying that Justin is actually doing really well. He once even admitted to alcoholism and said said he'd started his day with pills, and was lately seen at Coachella wire-thin, gaunt, and clearly inebriated beyond alcohol alone. When you compare it to the young, innocent Justin Bieber being filmed by his mother, it's a very stark contrast. Now, it's obviously hard to have empathy for this guy, especially when he seems so insufferable in the years gone past, but it's scary to see what happens when an industry gets his hand on a child and doesn't let go for 18 years. Even his mother's later admitted her fears about the industry. In her 2012 memoir, she revealed how she felt personally responsible for every contract and deal that shaped her son's future, and she was just terrified of making decisions that might steer Justin towards the wrong people or damaging relationships. She admitted to following her instincts and acknowledged that her worst fears may have actually turned true, as Justin was indeed steered towards unhealthy relationships with figures like Diddy, and those very contracts she agonized over became the financial chains that would bind her son for decades. And then, in July 2025, two things happened that started to surface the true nature of Justin's downfall. He settled his debts with Scooter Braun for over $30 million, and he surprise released his first album in 4 years. His comeback album Swag is a window into Justin's soul that looks so different to his earlier, more innocent music. It sounds like 21 tracks that feels like someone processing trauma in real time while the industry that broke him cashed in. Track 14, Therapy Session, has Justin telling comedian Drewski, "I've had to go through my struggles really publicly. People always asking if I'm okay starts to weigh on me." Other tracks touch on his turbulent relationships and marriage. The timing isn't coincidental. With Hailey's beauty company Rhode selling for $1 billion, the couple finally had the cash to buy Justin's freedom. But even as Justin paid up, Braun's people were telling reporters that Scooter felt taken advantage of, and had been patient with Justin while he partied away millions. Meanwhile, Justin's desperate search for meaning led him deeper into spiritualism. His Instagram became a stream of religious posts and pleas for spiritual guidance. But rather than a place of solace and peace, even his faith became another exploitation vector, as Justin threw himself into Hillsong Church, the celebrity megachurch known for its come-as-you-are aesthetic and A-list congregation. In 2014, during one of his darkest periods, he moved in with Pastor Carl Lentz for 6 weeks, becoming completely dependent on the charismatic leader who baptized him at 2 a.m. in an NBA player's bathtub. The relationship was described as mutually beneficial. Lentz helped rehabilitate Justin's public image, while Justin brought massive star power to the church. Former congregants described Hillsong's cultish atmosphere and celebrity obsession, where the leaders used their friendship with Justin to attract other celebrities, something exactly like Scientology. This wasn't really spiritual guidance, it was just the same manipulation playbook dressed in religious clothing. Eventually, Lentz was even fired in 2020 for multiple affairs and abuse allegations. Another person intimately connected to Justin who was struck off for being a disgusting, manipulative individual. Bieber later joined Church Home, which is a Hillsong spin-off fronted by a pastor named Judah Smith, who's been accused of other cult-like practices: childhood, adolescence, parenthood, finances, relationships, and spirituality. All the core tenets of a full life as a human seem to have been completely warped for Justin. Even with all the money and fame and looks that he's had, it seems like deep down he's left with nothing. And then there's the resurfaced Diddy connection that everyone's been dancing around. As Diddy continues to face charges, the footage of him with teenage Justin just looks so different today. And whether Justin was directly victimized or not, he was exposed to what federal prosecutors now call a criminal enterprise. But here's the real horror story. What happened to Justin isn't even unique. It's a well-worn template, and Hollywood's been perfecting this for decades. Just look at the trail of destruction. Whether it be Michael Jackson, Britney Spears, who's locked in a conservatorship for 13 years while generating $16 million annually for her handlers, Macaulay Culkin earning $23 million as a child while his father controlled every aspect of his life and finances, Lindsay Lohan churning out tabloid content even as she spiraled into addiction and legal troubles, or Amanda Bynes, whose public breakdown becomes daily entertainment while her mental health deteriorates. The Olsen twins, working since they were babies, developing eating disorders and retreating from public life entirely. Demi Lovato, who struggles with addiction and mental health, has just become part of a brand narrative. Each case follows the same pattern: early discovery, financial dependency, psychological manipulation, public breakdown, then either disposal or rehabilitation as content. And this model is going global. South Korea looked at Hollywood's child star machine and thought, we can do this better. Now 10-year-olds get signed as trainees, removed from their families and conditioned in company dormitories. When Shinny's life was passed by himself in 2017, he left a note about depression that was eating him alive. And the industry response wasn't soul-searching, it was just better PR management. China's got their own version with child influencers and pop stars disappearing into re-education when they step out of line. The UK churns through reality TV contestants on shows like Love Island, where producers keep psychological profiles detailing contestants' deepest insecurities, then deliberately exploiting them all for drama. When participants attempt to pass their own life, producers express concern while planning the next season. Hollywood created a system where childhood itself has become a commodity, where psychological damage generates more profit than mental health, where breaking someone down is more valuable than building them up. Social media just automated the entire thing, ensuring that any blind spot the media itself missed is covered, while platforming people to expose their innermost selves when they're most vulnerable and out of control. Something straight out of the Truman Show time and time again. Society funds this model. Every time people watch the celebrity breakdown video, they fund the exploitation. When Justin's desperate plea to protect his family becomes a viral joke about standing on business, it proved that even a father's attempt to shield his infant son is immediately trivial. Right now, somewhere in the world, another talented kid is being discovered. The same promises are being made about fame and fortune, but they're really just being fed into a giant machine designed to extract maximum profit from human talent, regardless of the psychological cost. So Justin doesn't really even need a comeback, he just needs an escape route. But this machine won't let go easily. They'll push until he breaks completely, and then drag what's left onto a stage for one final show. And if he refuses, they'll find another kid and start all over again. Because this industry doesn't create art or culture, it just creates trauma, then packages this as entertainment and sells it to people who mistake others as pain for pleasure. The machine is running, it's hungry, and it's looking for the next Justin Bieber. The question is, who's gonna feed it to them?